Okay, and welcome to episode 25, part 1 of Shockwaves. I'm one of your hosts, Rob Galluzzo. Sitting with me, Mr. Elric Kane. What the hell are you drinking?
I don't know, but I'm doing dynamite. Thanks for asking, Rob.
It's Belgium.
It's Belgian beer.
Why would you need to drink all of a sudden?
I don't know. I feel so good, I don't need to drink.
I don't know, guys. Why would we drink?
We do that every week anyway, so I guess it's all right.
All I know is we are here to entertain you today.
Entertain, that is the key.
That is what we are here for.
Also, Rebekah McKendry.
What's up?
Editor-in-Chief, and back our official
The
fourth
co-host.
Ryan Turek.
Hello, Ringo.
I just want to say,
From now on, you'll eternally be.
you know what? Who's
Ringo.
still around? Who's still around? No, I just want to say thank you for the nice, kind words on the podcast last week, and also to the listeners who were so nice on Twitter and social media. So thanks.
Yeah, it was a little blown out of proportion. But
It was. It wasn't like.
It wasn't like he was getting like crap
No,
talk.
I wasn't getting like
No.
Turek is a fucking asshole.
Everyone
But I
was
did
very
like-
politely like, "Hey, I just feel like the dynamic slightly shifted,"
yeah.
and it's like,
Yeah.
there's a fourth person. now.
Exactly.
But I did like that everybody came to your defense and was like, lay the fuck off Turek.
But the funny thing is like we've always had this dynamic. It was like the foursome is like always.
And you've
been-
also been on it before in the old show, even Killer. But the cool thing is, it's a new show, and I think and we're going to keep playing with it.
And
I think
I'm
that's the
really,
fun part.
Yeah, and I'm really happy that like it's getting split in half too. I mean, like that's the listening to the show from afar. I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna work.
And we could actually go all the way back to the origins, even before Killer POV and Bloodcast. Ryan and I were guests on a couple of Geek Nation shows together.
yeah, that's
like
right.
way,
Oh my
way
God.
back. Yeah, that was like long ago.
And, and I mean, realistically, we totally aped the original Shockwaves. Shockwaves was a podcast on Shock to You Drop in the very early days with you and Lawrence Raffle from FearNet.
Shout out to Lawrence.
So everything is
It all-
connected.
It's all connected.
Yeah,
Yes.
it all
goes in
comes back.
circle.
But I just want to get one thing out of the way.
Okay.
I think what you talked about. This country has seen some disruption this week, but we're not going to dwell on it. We're not going to get into it. That's not the forum. That's not what this podcast is. I believe in escapism, and I believe in entertainment being there to kind of get you through these tough times. Horror has always been around for that during wars and disasters and everything. So what we're here to do is talk about horror films, talk about fandom, talk about the things we love, keep the positivity going, and give you 2 hours worth of listening that will hopefully turn your mind to more better things. So
I can't do it, man. I tried. I'm breaking down. I want out.
I mean, we could go well into it, but
This is therapeutic for us, too.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
not just this week in particular, but every week.
Oh, absolutely.
It's fun to get together and drink and talk
absolutely.
movies.
That's why I snored my way into this podcast, because I was like, Rob, I need like an outlet to like talk to some.
Plus, we're like 3 feet away from your room, and you're kind of like, what are they doing in there?
What are you talking about?
Might as well just let you in.
It's Purge night. You don't sneak up on black people. My favorite quote from the new Purge
You
film.
saw the new Purge, which we're going to get to.
pretty funny.
On top of talking about films we've seen, we're also going to tackle a topic. We're going to answer some of your questions. Like we said, splitting up the show is going to give us an opportunity to expand and do other cool things.
Yeah.
But before all that, quick thanks. I just wanted to thank Flood, who did an amazing write-up on Shockwaves this week. It was actually Eric Stoltz who wrote the film Late Phases.
Yep.
And
Very eloquent, very eloquent man.
It just came as a complete surprise, but a pleasant surprise, and we really appreciate that, Eric. Check out Late Phases. I think it's on Netflix Instant still, so really pleasant surprise. We really appreciate that. And also, in case you didn't realize, we do have an Instagram, a Shockwaves Instagram.
We do. Yeah.
That
It's snazzy.
Including that
set
new
up.
book that Josh Forbes gave me, that slasher novel that's called Shockwaves.
Oh, yeah,
With the
yeah,
play-
yeah.
I was like, where the
Oh,
hell
that
did
was
this-
you? I thought that was
Yeah.
Rob.
No, he gave that to me,
No.
so I've got the copy of it. I'm
man.
super curious to
I
read
want
that
to.
one.
Yeah, when you're done,
I'll
let me
pass it
know.
on.
Yeah.
the Shockwaves
So I think we're up
soundtrack
to, like,
is out.
four
The book,
things.
The book.
it's all about Shockwaves.
Wow.
this
Collecting.
year.
Somebody send us Wiederhorn. We're collecting.
It's all
He's
happening.
in LA, right?
No, he's not.
I swear, wasn't he at Horror Trivia Night one night?
No, that's Lieberman.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, Jeff Lieberman.
Yeah.
Yeah. So So yeah, let's jump. Well, Ryan, tell us a little bit about your journeys since you were out of town for a bit.
Yeah, you've been down in the South.
Down in New Orleans. I was away for the last week and a half prepping a film called Half to Death, which Christopher Landon's directing. And it's a fun movie. I was there for mostly prep and then the first 2 days of shooting just to make sure everything was going great. But while I was down there, I got to hang out with Kevin from Waxwork Records.
Hey,
I got to see their new digs. I was privy to some of their upcoming things, and holy crap, guys! Waxwork Records is going to have a giant year in 2017. Giant. They're bringing the subscription service back, which is amazing. I was also able to find Inseminoid, the original soundtrack for Inseminoid on vinyl.
Owns Inseminoid on vinyl.
Yes. Wow. I was super stoked. I couldn't leave New Orleans without that. And
these are the people you're listening to.
Yeah. And then, and I will say too that during my time down there, I got to meet some podcast listeners.
Oh, cool.
One of our crew members, Ashley Walsh.
Yeah, I know Ashley.
Yeah. So she was like, I'm kind of nerding out right now because it's Ryan, and I'm talking with Ryan about horror. And I was like, I'm kind of nerding out because I follow you on social media and love all your photos.
Yeah, Ashley works on the Scream TV show.
She does,
TV, which will be relevant for our guest next week.
Yes,
so
yes.
Stay tuned for that.
But super cool peeps down there. And I also got to visit. I didn't really celebrate Halloween, by the way, because I was working. And it kind of bummed me out that I was so far away from the quarter during Halloween night. But the night before, Kevin and I took a trip out to the House of Shock, which is it's a seasonal haunt that is...
It's awesome.
It is amazing. It's part haunt and also part concert venue. So there's an outdoor stage and then there's a giant maze. And this maze rivals anything in Los Angeles.
Oh, wow.
Like, the production value is beautiful. They have a giant kind of clown face building that you walk into the mouth, and outside of the mouth there's a full like show going on, like a live show. So women and men were being hung up by their backs on hooks and they were swinging out over the crowd, and it was amazing. But it got me in a good mood that night, knowing that I was going to miss Halloween. But the maze itself takes you through multiple environments. So at first you're kind of going through a messed up carnival, and then you're going through a gothic house, and then you're going through kind of like, you're literally going through the bowels of hell itself, which was very Fulci-esque because it was like, you're literally walking through a cavern system that's in the middle of a graveyard. So you just see these bodies kind of like hanging out and coffins everywhere. But what a beautiful production. It was amazing. And everybody there was super sweet and super great. Like, it was just great to see so many horror fans like in a completely different environment, But if you're ever down in New Orleans, check out the House of Shock. I think they shut down for most of the year and they leave everything there. Like, the buildings are all there. And the funny thing is, when Kevin pulled up, this place is situated underneath an overpass. So there's just like a highway overpass, and you're near some railroad tracks. You're near you're near the river. It's just kind of really dank and dirty and kind of
It sounds like when you
seedy.
do meth.
Yeah. It's just like super sleazy, and I was like, this is a great environment. But it was good. The House of Shock.
And I saw you did some Beyond tours. You took on the bridge.
I took that night after
that.
House of Shock. Kevin's like, I just got to take you on the bridge. I'm like, the bridge to what? And he's like, the Beyond Bridge.
Yeah.
And I was like, no,
What?
it's a 29-mile bridge.
It's epic, yeah.
It runs off of New Orleans and bridges to the mainland. And
I can't believe they shut it down for the film because it's like such a busy bridge.
you know what, that weighed on me heavily once I realized, because I was like, oh my God, the production.
Yeah.
Like, Fulci was able to close down a section of bridge.
major.
Well, there's no other way where to go,
Yeah.
because once you're on the bridge, you can find a little like connector that gives you a chance to do a U-turn and turn you back around. But still, the Beyond, just imagine back in like 79, 80, the Beyond disrupted some traffic in New Orleans. I wanted to go to the house.
Is it still standing?
The house is still standing. It's like a museum or something like that now. But I would have had to take the bridge over there, which was about a 30-minute drive, and then a little bit deeper into the woods. But I didn't have an opportunity to. But I saw it, so next time I will.
Yeah, I would go for that.
Wow.
That's cool.
Yeah, very cool. What did you guys see?
Well, I saw
Wants to
Purge
go?
Election.
Oh, talk about
let's
You know
start
what's
with
ironic
that.
is I think a lot of our choices are actually going to be relevant.
Yeah.
But go ahead. Start with
Well,
the
I mean,
first
that was I said I wanted to watch it the day before. I wanted to watch it a while ago, but I actually thought it was quite a fun movie. I didn't like it quite as much as 2, but 2's like kind of a real high point, I think, in that series so far, in terms of an action film. But there was a lot of stuff I like. I still have the only criticism I ever have about the Purge films. It's always the same thing. It's like the kind of general characters. They're all like types. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And so, which also I get why, because it's big movies and they're more like action films than horror films, and that plays better. But in terms of actual visual horror, this film is actually quite fun at the little cutaways of just total macabre, fucking dark shit happening to people.
It's a little bit more grisly than the previous predecessors.
It's definitely more like a horror film than an action than the last one. That last one just balls out action to me. And I had a lot of fun watching it. I'm glad the carnage. When I say general, I think remember The Following, the show. Like when you had characters in death, The Following always had the thing where it's like perfectly watchable, but you never gave a shit when people died
because everybody died.
Yeah, and by the end of this, there's a couple characters obviously you don't want to die, but other than that, you're like, it's all up for grabs.
I did really love the idea of the death tourism.
Oh yeah,
I thought that was such a smart inclusion.
The foreign,
foreign people coming to America.
Like who just come to America to kill somebody. It was very hostile-like, but
and it did. Yeah, I definitely thought of Eli Roth in that moment. It definitely also made me think it'd be a really fun series to see like other people get to do spin-offs of other directors, their spin on this. A great idea. It's a great concept that's out there now. We understand the Purge, and then like seeing other people run with it. I kept going, man. You know what? I'd really like to have seen a Ruggero Deodato '70s version of this, that with David Hansen, just ugly.
So many intestines.
I will say that we're particularly proud of the fact that DeMonico has been on this franchise from the get-go. It's a creator.
It's his vision.
Like it's a creator vision.
Yeah, I see that.
And so we're especially proud of the fact that he did, one, not knowing how it would take off, and then coming back for 2 and coming back for 3, and like having that that full idea of where he wanted to go with it, And
there's closure to the 3 films. So for those who haven't seen it yet, I won't ruin it, but those 3 could just be its own series, and you can now go anywhere if you wanted. I feel like that story is now done.
Yeah,
to me.
I like that about it.
And I think that's a nice closure. And it was, to be perfectly honest, much more optimistic than what happened last night. I felt a lot worse last night than I did after the end of the Purge.
I will say that The Purge is a highly pitchable kind of concept. We hear it a lot. We see it on social media a lot. I think during election night we were getting like bombarded with ideas, but it's like in DeMonico we trust. And he always finds a way to kind of the ideas that you're talking about or the ideas that you want, like the things you want to see the series delve into, he'll get there. It just takes a little, you don't want to cram it all into one movie.
Right. So he's the one I have to pitch Predator.
Yeah.
He's the guy. If I get it in his ear, suddenly you'll listen.
Persiator.
Did you see? I think John Holland did an image.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, it's on our Facebook.
No, he didn't. Did he really?
It's amazing.
That's
Put the Predator in the middle of the Purge zone, and it actually looks kind of awesome.
Like crush a skull.
I'd see that movie.
I have to look
There's
it up.
actually a similar concept. There's an episode of Rick and Morty where they visit a planet right as that planet is having their yearly purge. So it's like the aliens entering the purge. It's amusing.
It's great high concept stuff.
That's cool. What else did you see?
I saw a really good double feature. I borrowed the Rabid Blu-ray from Rebekah, the new release, and I doubled it with Slugs. And this was
I watched Slugs too. You watched the Arrow Blu-ray. I watched Slugs as well. That's on my list.
You want an entertaining evening, watch these 2 sleazy ass films. Rabid's a lot sleazier than I remembered. It's also a lot goofier. Compared to other Cronenberg, there is goofy cameos and weird side characters.
It doesn't hold up as well as a lot. Like I watch Shivers now, and I'm still like, damn, this is a tight little film. Same with The Brood. I watch Rabid, and I'm like, it's got a little side.
Well, what it's
stuff.
got, what's interesting, because I actually totally agree with you, because Rabid's the one I've been waiting to rewatch the most of any Blu-ray, really. Like, been just holding out for it to come on Blu-ray. And rewatching, I'm like, no, the idea is still fucking amazing. The effect, the payoff shots are great, but there's a lot of fat to that movie. And he becomes such a better director as he goes at tightening. Like, by the time you get to Fly, there's not a wasted moment in his movie.
How early is that? Is that his first?
It's a second
feature?
Second film. Shivers was
that,
first.
and then
I gotcha.
Brood.
But Shivers feels really tight, and maybe that's just because it is such a confined film anyway, so when it does get meandering, you feel like it's necessary.
And that one has multiple characters in a way that makes sense because it's spreading. This one has the boyfriend character is a terrible actor. That's a terrible performance. You've got a porn star in the lead, and her performance is fun because it suits the sexual story.
It has its moments.
But I still love Rabid. It's still a cool movie, but I agree with you completely, actually. But Slugs
is amazing.
It was so much fucking fun.
Oh my God,
Speaking of cerebral, let's just turn to Slugs.
No, it's surprisingly...
Who directed it? Same director as Pieces, baby.
Yeah.
Yes.
Juan Picar,
way.
Simon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And Slugs, it's a
Say no
really
more.
well put together film. As I was watching it, it follows the same kind of Purge concept where it follows a couple of different characters on their story as slugs erupt on the town. So like you're seeing all these different characters throughout the whole thing, and then they never really intersect, but you're getting like 7 different stories of what's going on.
Yeah, it's like a nothing movie that happens to have like just great payoff shots.
Yeah.
You know, like the moments where people
But it can't be as fun as Pieces.
It's not as good as Pieces.
It's not
but
as good.
It's got some payoff moments that are in that ballpark.
Amazing.
Like, that are just absurd. But
Yeah.
the funniest thing about it is these scenes where they'll just get in a car and just drive, and you're just watching a car drive, and the music will be played at like full tilt orchestral score, and you're going, but nothing's happening, and it's one of the worst, worst juxtapositions I think I've ever seen.
It's
But-
when I learned that slugs permanently have parasites that live in their
yeah.
guts.
Yeah.
And they grow to immense proportions.
But I have not watched the extras. I hear the extras are quite good.
I
on
haven't
it.
watched the extras yet. I remembered Slugs from my childhood because we had it on VHS. My parents had a copy of Slugs that we owned as a
that's funny.
family. And so I had seen it a ton before. So there were certain scenes that I remembered, like the scene where the slugs actually pull the guy away.
Yeah.
And
The effects are actually good. It
You
had $1
see
million
a slug
budget.
with teeth that actually looks really legit. Like the slug with teeth
right,
that
yeah.
bites her finger. It looks
Yeah,
good.
it's actually really good.
The scene where the guy like hacksaws off his own hand, it looks good. So yeah,
I just like the Arrow films elevates these things.
That was an Arrow. It was funny because I like when those things get announced, I immediately pre-order them on
Yeah.
Amazon, and then I have to kind of go back and go, maybe I don't need slugs this month.
Yes, you do.
I should eat some food.
I don't know if that's
no.
one you need
They're
to
pricey.
own.
You
Very
need-
I feel like
pricey.
you could borrow that.
I
from a
bought
friend.
it. You can borrow
have a lot
mine,
of
but I need that one back because that's one that I pre-ordered Slugs just because my parents had it, and I was like, it's like a childhood memory for me.
Had you guys seen He Knows You're Alone before?
Yeah.
No, I have not.
See, I'd never seen it. It's Tom Hanks, a whole bunch of people are in
Oh,
it.
yeah.
So TCM, this is just kind of controversial because it was the day Daylight Savings happened, and I tweeted, hey, Alone in the Dark by Jack Shelter, and then He Knows You're Alone back-to-back, fucking A. And so a lot of people actually recorded them, and every single one of us next day go, and He Knows You're Alone, you only get the first hour of it, and that cuts out because the time zone difference that happened, and they fucked it all up. So everyone's writing CCM going, what's the second half? So I only saw the first half, so I'm not even gonna I'm not gonna sit here and talk, but the opening scene was fucking rad.
It's on either Shudder or Hulu or Amazon.
I'll get
out
the second
there.
half. It's really fun. It opens with a great movie theater death, and I'm thinking of actually writing a movie theater death scene
Hey.
and horror film list for you guys because it really was a fun, big movie. It was actually, you can tell Scream 2 probably directly took that scene from the opening scene. And then just real quickly, though, I've been continuing this film noir horror that I wanted to go on. So I had a sickie the other day where I got to watch the Criterion release of Cat People, which is gorgeous,
Oh, yeah.
sexual, just a Jacques Tenier, one of the
We
best.
have a good article that went up on the
directors.
site today about cat people.
Earlier this week.
Yeah, earlier this week.
And then
Thank you.
I recorded on TCM Curse of the Cat People, which is directed by Robert Wise, who did The Haunting, and it couldn't be more. It has some of the same actors. Couldn't be. The cat people aren't in it at all. It's a children fantasy film, basically. There's no horror, even though it's called Chris Cat, and it was sold as a horror film.
Was Val Lewton still involved in that
this
one?
is still Val Lewton produced. It's like he slipped in this amazing fairy tale kids film, and it's beautiful. It's like a perfect little movie, but it has nothing to do. I mean, except for it's the kid of the guy from the first one. And but what's cool about it is it takes place in Terrytown, and so they keep talking about the legend of Sleepy Hollow throughout the film. So it's like, oh, we are in Sleepy Hollow, and they tell the story of the Headless Horseman. But so it's just a beautiful little movie, and my favorite of the ones I've seen so far to end on is the one you were talking about last week, which I realized I hadn't seen, which is The Seventh Victim.
I'm so glad you watched that.
Because I thought I kept mixing it up with Curse of the Demon, because Curse of the Demon, which I know well, is
It's great.
similar kind of.
It's Jacques Tourneur.
Yeah, that Tenier, and then it's
Tenier, thank
Satanist.
you.
But this would probably be my pick so far. I mean, I'm going to be watching I Walk with a Zombie again, which I haven't seen in years.
Which is
and I love
surprisingly racist. I rewatched it a couple of weeks
well,
ago.
not surprisingly, because of the time
No,
period.
no, it's very racist. No, I rewatched it a couple weeks ago when I was doing my top scary films from the 40s list, and I was like, oh my God, I completely forgot how racist this
But
movie
Becca,
is.
nothing's racist anymore.
Nothing. Okay. Sorry.
It's a new world.
I forgot.
New world order.
I'm a
Nothing's
woman.
racist.
I'll go sit in the corner.
There is no racist. But Seventh Victim, if you haven't seen it, that would be the one I would pick out right now because it's very strange in its tone. It's about a cult of Satanists. It is just like the use of lighting and expressionism to drive a whole movie. And Psycho has a total reference of the shower curtain scene, and it's awesome. That scene where somebody's like menacing you behind a shower curtain, just talking as a shadow.
I love The Seventh Victim because it was a horror film set in New York City in the 1940s, which is just an amazing landscape to begin with. But you just kind of, you don't see a lot of filmmaking in New York City that really kind of embraces the city until it gets gross in the 80s. Like you see it in the 70s and 80s, but it was amazing. It takes place mostly in Greenwich Village.
And it's just, it is Greenwich, and it's a super shocking ending. It's one of those things that you reevaluate how you watch the movie. Directed by Mark Robson, who was one of Orson Welles. He might have been the editor on Citizen Kane. All these guys seems to have, because they're RKO, so they've all worked with Wells and then Val Lewton. So anyway, I'm really enjoying this series.
The main woman in that, I always called her the original goth girl.
Yeah, she's
totally
incredible.
Goth. She's totally goth.
But yeah, so that's why I'm going to keep doing these for the next till I get through all the Lutons.
Wow.
Dementia.
Having fun. Yeah, I'll get to that next.
Okay.
What about you, Becca?
Well, I watched Slugs, which was definitely the highlight of my week. I watched the fancy...
Highlight of the week?
Yeah, really. Compared to these other ones. I watched the Fancy Pants Blue Underground release of Manhattan Baby from Fulci.
Oh, I want to borrow that.
Oh, no,
That was a tough one.
It's a slog. Really? Oh, my God.
I remember it being a rough film.
It's Fulci, but like Fulci slow.
Yeah.
And Fulci slow to begin with, but it's Fulci slow.
Well, this October I was so optimistic because I've always liked Fulci movies. I used to confuse a lot of them, but for some reason I saw the Beyond at Beyond Fest, and then I immediately watched City of the Living Dead, and I've always liked those movies, but for some reason now something clicked in me where like they were perfect. Like I like every aspect of it. I followed the story perfectly this time, whereas most of the time they're kind of confusing. So I'm like, oh man, I get Fulci now. I'm at the ripe age to understand.
You're at the Fulci peak.
Just when you thought you got Fulci.
I finally got him, and then I threw on Manhattan Baby, and I was like, nah.
Nope.
It's not so much.
It's a little rough. No, and it was definitely one of these movies where I'm watching it, and then I'm like, I should go change over the laundry because nothing's fucking happening. Yeah. And but the soundtrack is awesome, so I put the soundtrack in my car and I've been listening to it, and it really it makes my drive on the 101 sound epic.
I'll borrow it before I buy it.
Yeah, and that said, Blue Underground did do, as always, they did a great job.
It looks gorgeous.
Looks amazing. If I'm not mistaken, that's the one. There's actually, I believe, there's a little in the studio featurette of. Fabio Frizzi and his live band playing Manhattan Baby music.
The soundtrack is beautiful.
It's almost like a live music video of them doing the music, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome little
I think I used to
feature.
get that mixed up with the Bavo and Kill Baby Kill, which is a great movie.
Kill Baby
and
Kill
And then I remember watching Manhattan. Oh, is this that great movie? And then go, oh,
no,
it's not the great movie.
No. This is little girl goes with her family to Egypt and gets possessed.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a slog.
And then comes back to New York.
Comes back to New York.
Okay.
So it's a Fulci New York film.
Thus
So that's
bringing
kind of
in
cool.
Manhattan.
Exactly.
So then after that, well, I did. This is not horror, so I'll touch on it briefly. But I've been working my way through Twilight Time's new releases. So I watched Murphy's Law, which does not hold up as well as I remember it from when I was a kid. And then I watched Rollerball, which still totally kicks ass.
Rollerball kicks
that was great.
So yeah, fun stuff from Twilight Time. I decided to go back. I've been doing a lot of band titles on the website lately, kind of going through things that were banned years ago, like
I thought you
decades
were talking
ago.
about bands.
No,
big
bands.
bands.
Not like
Big band
bands
titles.
or
Like the
Charlie
Who
Band. No, like banned films from years past, going back, watching them again, and then seeing, why they might have been banned and kind of evaluating. So I went back and watched Masters of Horror's Imprint episode from 2006 to see why it was banned, does it still hold up, and all that stuff. It's still pretty fucking hardcore. The rubber fetus budget on that one must have been pretty damn high.
Rubber Fetus River.
Rubber fetus river. Oh my god!
I'll never
Taking a tour.
I did. I think it was on Icons of Friday. I did an interview with Mick Garris, and we started talking about that. And I was like, when Billy Drago is the least weird thing of your short, you made something fucked up.
He was still pretty weird though. Like I wrote,
but compared to the rest of the stuff in that,
no. I wrote in the article that his acting ranged between downgazed mumbling and chewing the scenery in wailing and it was just bizarre acting. But yeah, when you're in there with everything else that's going on, it was kind of oh well, Billy's doing his thing, but oh my god, everything else. Yeah, and it's really hyper stylized, and I still really feel like Miike was trying to make some type of statement in it, but I have no idea what it was, and I don't know if it was just lost on Western audiences. But it really feels like Audition obviously has a bigger social statement, Visitor Q has a bigger social statement, Ichi the Killer, but this one,
I just think that guy's making 100 movies a year. He doesn't care. He's just I'm just rolling.
The output to quality kind of ratio is, there was a point where I was like, oh, okay, you're just going to keep cranking them out.
Yeah.
And occasionally one will surprise us.
One will surprise
us. One will
jump,
one will raise to the
Usually I rely on Fantasia and Mitch Davis and the programmers there, because if they have him there, and they have a film there, and then I'm like, okay, and you guys I trust, I'll go check it out.
I don't know. I wasn't into his film this year. I can't remember what was the name of it.
It was like
Well, the one last year was like Over Your Dead Body. I think Scream Factory put it out.
I can't even remember the name this year, but it wasn't. It was about the school,
Right.
And it was not my favorite film there.
You know what? My memory of Imprint, because I haven't seen it in years, but I really liked it. But my memory of it was, I wish it was in Japanese, because another part of that Mick Garrison interview is that everyone spoke English in it, but all the Japanese actors didn't speak English. So they're actually just saying their lines phonetically. So they didn't even know what they were saying.
That makes so much sense.
And I was kind of like, well, I don't know if it was a Showtime mandate or what. Probably. But it's like, just make it Japanese with subtitles.
Did they have, I don't remember Dreamboat, because they did the Dreamboat episode.
That was
I
in
thought
season
that was
2.
Yeah.
And I think maybe they learned from that for season 2.
Because I don't remember that one being in English.
But also that's what makes it weird is the delivery of all the Japanese actors, because they have
flat.
no idea what they're saying, because they're just speaking phonetically from what they assume the words are supposed to sound like.
Wow. Okay, that makes more sense now.
Yeah.
Let's see. As much as I was making fun of Ryan for buying Inseminoid on vinyl, I was at a thrift store in North Hollywood and picked up Vanishing Point, Nightmare on Elm Street, and Suspiria on Laserdisc. Ooh. Not that I even own a Laserdisc player anymore, but I was just like, these are kind of badass. So that's just a note. The last thing I'll mention.
Thanks for that.
Thank you. Yes.
I hope we need a spin-off podcast of just your like
cool
thrift store.
Becca's tangential.
Oh no! Here's what I found this
store.
week.
Cool. What?
My husband got a shirt.
It's not Inseminoid on vinyl, assholes.
How much did that cost again?
Oh my god!
For your girlfriend listening.
Forget it. The last thing I was I will say Exorcist. I am still totally into.
Oh yeah, TV wise.
I haven't seen it yet.
Really, really good
stuff.
stuff.
I wanted to ask if we're all on board or not.
I'm still on board. I actually like
it's awesome.
I like the direction they're now taking it. Now that we know what we know.
Now
I can honestly say
there's
there's about 2 minutes where I wasn't sure though. There's about 2 minutes in the new one, like right at the start, where I'm like, is the tone going to change here? I was like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
And then it totally came back.
Yeah, and that's because I think I never thought of that angle. You'll understand what I mean. In the opening, they kind of present something from the original movie.
Sure.
And then it closes on a way where you're like, oh, I never thought about that. So I thought that was a good in.
But it's still good
for the rest of the show. Yeah. And also, I have to say, Ash vs. Evil Dead continues to be awesome.
Behind again.
But even better, and you know, they brought Cheryl back
cool.
this week, which is
all
great.
Right.
Tie in Evil Dead. And man, I don't know what her secret is, but Ellen Sandweiss has not aged in 35 years. She looks like exactly the same as she did in the original Evil Dead.
Deadite.
But you will enjoy, if you haven't seen it yet, you will enjoy let's just say the jokes made at the expense of what happened to her.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. There are some new phrases I never would have thought of until Ash spit them out.
That's
so
funny.
Now, are you guys caught up on Candle Cove as well?
No,
not last night.
Way behind on it.
I didn't do last night's, but the week before, and this is weird, I actually had like a mini nightmare about. It was bizarre. Like I watched it right before I went to bed.
It definitely has that quality. Unlike most shows. Most shows are like so narratively focused. This one definitely is pretty dreamy. Yeah. Like the imageries it doesn't tell you what they are. You're just lingering in your mind.
Yeah, it was. And this has been in all of the episodes so far, so I'm not revealing anything. But they always show the tooth guy sucking on the guy's hand while he sleeps, and I literally I had a nightmare where like that thing was in the room going after my hand, and then I woke up and I was like, "This is just dumb." The dog's like got my hand in his mouth.
That's good stuff.
So yeah, but I am loving it so
great.
far.
And there's only a couple left, and then we'll wait for.
I think it's 6 total, right?
Yeah.
Because I watched the first one and I liked it, but I was like, you know what? I need to rewatch that because again, it seemed like very dense storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
But now that they're almost done with it, I think I want to carve a weekend out to just watch all 6.
It feels like a movie.
And
I think
it
that
feels
works,
very cinematic.
I feel like they would do well binge watch. And don't lose it on the third one was kind of the biggest, the driest for me, but it was really plot heavy.
They bring it back.
Yeah.
It's good
that's
stuff.
fine. I'm looking forward to it.
I got to catch up on all of it this week.
Excellent. I'm not impressed though with where American Horror Story is going. Have you guys caught up on
It's
that?
like the same story every year with you guys.
Becca's usually a
I'm
defender.
into it. I'm still into it.
No,
I don't know
I'm
about
usually
now.
way into it.
The Walking Dead effect, you know?
Yeah, this last episode, they totally went torture porn. And then I was kind of like, I'm bored. And then they brought it back a little bit at the end. But I'm usually like the biggest defender of that show. But this last episode, I was like,
How many more are there? They all like on the second half at this point?
No,
They're on the second
Yeah,
half.
it's past.
And they've got like a couple just 3 episodes.
And I remember
Three
number
episodes
10,
left.
it changes again, so you're not up to that yet. So once
No.
I think
Oh,
it's
it
like
changes one more time?
Yeah, a big, like,
That's what they say.
somebody said to me, huge change.
Okay,
So,
I'm caught up to
I
last
don't know.
week.
I don't even know who tells us these things.
Yeah, who's your
Some insider.
Oh,
Who's
it's
your
like
source?
I heard about this.
I hear about this.
Ryan's got Elric's got a bird that shows up every morning and
whispers in my
here's
ear.
the
I heard a
scoop on
thing
American Horror Story.
And what about? Are you still keeping up
I like
on?
he sounds like he's from New York.
Walking Dead.
Yeah, you?
Yeah.
I really, really like the last one because of it took a character who's a nothing character in the series, like a side character, and gave him an entire episode. And I really liked learning about that side of things and getting their motivation. I thought that was a really interesting episode.
Sure.
But I do want to see the characters who are meant to be suffering.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't
Yeah,
seen them
yeah.
for 2 episodes now.
That's the thing. It's like that. I don't know how that show does it, but it skates the fine line
yeah.
about like we're gonna fuck with you so hard,
And then leave it
you're
for a
not
while.
gonna see those people for 5 episodes.
for 4 weeks.
We're gonna go, and Joe Blow here is gonna get his own episode.
But I gotta admit, I've never
You're
been
like, all right.
I've never been a big Daryl guy. Like I see why he's popular. But there's something he does at the end of the episode where I literally went, "Fuck yeah, Daryl!"
Yeah.
Like
It's
you're a
it's
fucking
great,
beast. And so
yeah,
that was
no,
cool.
he was. It
So
was
still
good
got
to give him.
He
a
still gets
showcase.
he still gets my vote. He's still cool. So.
All right. Well, I dig it. All right. So for me, this is really quick. I just wanted to mention Scream Factory's release of Carrie. Came out on Blu-ray. Absolutely
get that.
fantastic. You know, I haven't seen it in a couple of years. I revisit it every once in a while. And in particular, I didn't revisit it because I wanted to see the other ones fresh. Like they had put out The Rage Carrie 2, which I like a lot. And I wanted to give the Fuller one another chance, the one with Angela Bettis.
Oh, right,
and,
right.
And to me, the new thing is I'd rather, if I'm going to watch a sequel or a remake or whatever it is, I choose not to marathon them anymore. I just want to see that movie on its own without the other one fresh in my head. But I mean, Carrie is like kind of perfect.
Yeah, I watch it every year. I watch it every year.
It's the pacing of it, the timing of it, the new scan is fantastic. It looks great because the previous Blu-ray that MGM put out was very, very grainy. And there was like a lot of pixelation and noise in it. But as always, Scream Factory did a fantastic job. So it's a classic. You should own it anyway.
I think it's his best performance. Like I like a lot of De Palma, but sometimes I feel like because he's so involved in his camera movements, he forgets about the performance. The performances in there are so good,
Terrific.
grounded. You're in the opening scene. You're with her. You feel for her. Piper Laurie's fucking amazing.
Yeah,
You
they're
know,
both
it's-
amazing.
it's
I
a
love
really
the
strong
coach.
film.
The
Yeah,
coach is
yeah,
like my
yeah.
favorite character because she yells at the girls and slaps Nancy
Yeah,
Allen that one
right,
scene.
yeah.
One scene's great, So
And all the young people have never looked, but they're at their peak.
Oh
You know,
yeah,
all these
absolutely,
young people like Travolta.
absolutely.
It's
And
really
quite frankly, I was thinking about they showed it here in celebration of this release at the Ace Theater in Los Angeles, and the one gimmick they did is at the end when Carrie kind of takes control of the room and hits the red lights. The red lights came on in the entire theater at the same time. There's a little video of it on the Scream
That's
Factory
cool.
page, and it's like it gave me chills watching it because it's super cool the way they synchronized it. And yeah, to this day, I think that end sequence, much like the shower scene in Psycho, it's like I don't know if you could ever top a split screen prom massacre the way that De Palma did in that movie. So highly recommended if you don't have that release yet, or if you're thinking about getting the Blu-ray, the new Scream is the one to get. So that's that. I got a lot of love for Severin this week. 2 titles. The second one will lead us into our first topic. The first I'm holding here, which is kind of you saw The Purge. I saw The Killing of America.
Which we talked about that a long time ago, right?
We talked about this.
I had seen it on.
Here's the
as
deal.
A kid.
We talked about this a lot on Killer POV.
Yeah.
And in fact, after we talked about it, because this has been banned here in the
it was
U.S.
never available here.
It came out in 1981. It's directed by Sheldon Rennan, but the producers behind it, one of them is Leonard Schrader, who is Paul Schrader's brother. And this
Mishima.
is, and we talked about this on Killer POV. And when it's a kind of documentary and history on real life violence around the country. From what I understood when you were explaining it to me,
How would you
But it
ban
always-
that if it's all documental?
Because it's
what?
presented, well, at least I always thought it was presented in a Faces of Death
That's
style.
what I thought too.
Where it's more like a Mondo film.
And in fact, I bought when you talked about it on Killer POV, I bought the import DVD of it, and I just never had the courage to watch it. I was just like,
It sounds intense.
Because I was expecting a Faces of Death style thing, and now Severin have done this new restoration on Blu-ray. There's 2 versions of it. There's the English language one, and apparently this was huge in Japan, so they made a much longer Japanese version. I haven't watched
I'm really
that yet.
intrigued why that was huge in Japan.
You know what?
Sick fucks. Seriously.
They released it there as Violence USA.
Oh, there you go.
Oh,
Yeah,
so
there
it
you
was
go.
like an exploitation thing.
Yeah, I guess
Wow.
so. But anyway, this is not what you think at all. It wasn't a Faces Death thing. There is real graphic violence in it, but it's actually a really interesting and compelling documentary that goes way back to like the early 60s or so and on. And kind of, there's a narrator, there's score and music, and it kind of just shows the increasing, the escalation of violence throughout the country, starting with, like the assassination of JFK. They cover that a bit. And then his brother, Robert. And then, Martin Luther King, John Lennon. You kind of get to see how that
becomes
affected.
almost regular.
Yeah, it became
death,
accepted and how people reacted to it, and et cetera. And then it's weird. It kind of morphs halfway through into like serial killer stuff.
More
Because then
sensational stuff.
they touched on Ted Bundy, and you see footage of him in court, which we kind of laughed at because he's terrifying to me. Like he's my
because
scary.
he defended himself.
But
because
like
he's a
the level of defiance he shows the judge in court, like he's trying to walk out one point, and they're like, "Sit down," and he's like,
He tries to walk out
yeah.
of court?
"Yeah," he's like,
He escaped one time from prison by in the prison library because he was
that's
defending himself.
That's what's
jumped out the
shocking
window.
to me. He
Ran
like
away,
opened the
got
window,
away.
jumped out, and then went and killed a bunch of girls
for
in
another
college.
couple months. He was out.
It's unbelievable.
He's
but
an
anyway,
amazing figure. It's
they touch upon that. There's another killer. I think it's Ed Kemper
or Gacy.
Oh, yeah,
Ed Kemper's
Kemper.
in it, yeah.
Now there is some really. They interviewed him. So there's a long interview with him in the doc that's just exclusive to this, and it is pretty damn chilling.
Yeah.
But I found it fascinating, and more than anything, this came out literally on Election Day, which I'm sure Severin was banking on that.
Good timing.
It is.
I think they tipped the election with this release.
It is so relevant, but more than anything, and I was telling Ryan this off camera. It is totally like almost nothing has changed. Yeah. I know that's the saddest thing to say, and the reason being is because at one point they do they talk about the Charles Whitman, the shooting in Texas, which was 1966. Guy randomly went up on a rooftop and started shooting people for no reason. He just lost it.
Clock tower,
killed,
right?
Clock tower. Killed his wife and mother before he did it. And he got gunned down. And there's footage in here of a politician, 1966, after this massacre, who is saying, we have to regulate gun control. Yeah. We have to do it.
Crazy.
This is too much. We have to do something about it. And I'm like watching this footage thinking, holy shit, this is 66.
Yep.
40 years.
And the
And
documentary
nothing has
was
changed.
made in 80s.
And 81. It came out in 81. And it's like nothing has changed. So that's the kind of sad, shocking reality.
Yeah.
I think the only difference is it's spread through social media now.
Yeah,
and
well, that's the
easier
thing. What that is a realization of, what we've always known is like this stuff has been prevalent for decades.
Yeah.
Like this is nothing's changed.
Well, in America, it's a country forged in bloodshed, right?
Totally, exactly.
Conflict,
and what's happening is that, social media is bringing us closer together. Information is bringing us closer together. So, it's just like what you watched last night is like just a reminder. Hey, by the way, everything's been awful.
It's always
60s.
sucked, guys.
It's a reverse of the Lego song. Everything is awesome. It's like no, everything is awful.
Everything's always sucked.
It actually made me, even last night, reminded me of Mark Duplass was on that B thing. And the one thing he said about filmmakers, he said, advice to up-and-coming filmmakers, he goes, I only have one piece of advice. There's no cavalry coming. If you want to get this done, you have to do it yourself. No one is coming to save you. And I felt the same way about the election afterwards. I was like, we can't just wait around assuming things are going to work out for us now. It's like it's up to every person to make the future they want to make.
Yeah.
And I feel I feel like documentaries like that really bring that home. You're like, there's a lot of bleak shit in the world. Sure there is. But, do you have to accept that? Fuck no. After today, I'll be a lot more optimistic, obviously. But in general, I really do feel like, hey, there's no cavalry. It's kind of freeing to know that. And you can only become an adult to know that because as a kid, there is a cavalry, your parents or whatever.
Yeah, of course.
So,
Yeah.
So it doesn't change,
Yeah, well, I think they did an excellent job with this release, and I actually strongly recommend it. Again, I was kind of scared to watch it, but I thought it was excellent. Really great. And there's some cool new special features. They talk to the director. They touch on some of the Manson stuff as well. But then the other Severin thing I brought with me, and I think Becca has it too.
The Dracula.
It's a new documentary called The Trail of Dracula. And it's a little over an hour long. And initially, I thought it was supposed to be a special feature on the Jesse Franco Count Dracula release. Mm-hmm. And instead, they opted to just make it its own separate thing. And who did this? It's written and directed by David Mitcher. And I mean, the reason I wanted to talk about Dracula was because, we had an article on the website about, is Dracula still scary? And the other thing is I've said plenty on the show that I've not really gotten heavily into the Hammer period. I'm slowly now starting to watch a lot of those films. So of the movie monsters, I always loved the Wolfman. I always loved the Creature. Dracula's kind of very low on my totem pole in terms of movie monsters that I love. And it's not that I don't love the character or the films I've seen. It's just that the films I tend to see tend to be the exact same retelling of the Dracula legend. It's the same thing. It's, Renfield and Van Helsing and, they move into
Long Lost Love.
Yeah, it's kind of,
well, that's why Dracula 2000 is so good. Because it just breaks, it takes the model and breaks it and makes
He's in a band.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the things that I really enjoyed this documentary, and there's tons of cool stuff on the DVD to make it worthwhile. There's a 95-minute trailer reel of all Dracula movies. So if you just want to throw that on in the background, that's kind of neat. But I liked going through the history and hearing about the original novel, at what point the romanticism of it, because, it was a play for a while. They talk about Nosferatu, that version of it, which to me is the most terrifying version of Dracula.
And Vampire, the Dreyer film, that was just after that.
Yeah. And, one thing I didn't know was because Bela Lugosi is obviously most well known for Dracula, and yet he only played it on screen twice, in the original and in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. Yep. I had no idea that they just never asked him again.
Weird.
He did it. There might have been some sort of disagreement with his representation in terms of what was the second one? Dracula's daughter.
Dracula's daughter. Yeah,
because he's in the very beginning. It's a lookalike, but it's not Bela Lugosi.
Right.
And apparently, they get to the point where they talk about Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, and it's like Bela apparently and his representation begged to let him play that role. And I think, now in retrospect, you're like, of course you got to get Bela. He's Dracula. Yeah. But the fact that they made all these movies without him and didn't even ask him.
Fact, because I don't know that either, but it might be touched on in Ed Wood. I have a feeling it is, because that desperation of his character obviously comes through.
Yeah. Or it's personal. I mean, usually it's through, if you're not being asked back, it's because, personal stuff.
Yeah. So I found that aspect interesting. And even all the, they delve into Christopher Lee stuff. And here's what I love about that guy. Not only was he a great Dracula, but he reprised it, I think, more than any other person. He played it 13
and for different
times.
people too. I mean, he did the Spanish.
Oh yeah, he did the Spanish. Yeah. He did all these different versions of Dracula, and he's there's I guess it's from a panel somewhere, the footage of him talking about it. And I've actually read this before. He really didn't want to keep coming back, but bless him, every time he said yes, he said he did it for the crew, because the same crew worked on all the movies, and he'd always get a phone call. He's like, "Yeah, I'm not going to do another Dracula," and they'd call him. He's like, "Look, it will happen if your name is on it. We will get the money. If you don't do it, all these people that worked on the last movie will be out of work."
Right.
Oh, wow.
So he literally was like, "I just can't let my friends
and
not
he's
work."
like, "I'll do it with a handlebar."
Yeah.
I'm keeping the handlebar for Dracula.
Only if it's in the 70s.
So I thought that was really sweet and interesting that he kept doing it primarily so people could keep working, because the movie would get made if he was in it.
Well, the first one he's in, and the first time you've seen, he is one of the best Draculas for that. Those moments where he turns with the blood, he really looks like what the character is in your brain.
Right.
As it goes on, it becomes a trope.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so the topic, the reason I wanted to bring it up is not only did I think the documentary was excellent, and I just love docs of this sort that kind of give you the history of a certain type of horror trope, but I want to know what your favorite Dracula style movies are, because in the last couple of years, the ones that really excite me are, believe it or not, Blackula. I'd never seen Blackula until the Blu-ray came out. I'm like, this is a really good reinterpretation. It had scary, Salem's Lot style vampires in it. I'm like, this is really good.
I think it actually gets disregarded a lot because people, I mean, it is part of blaxploitation, but people just assume that because it is an exploitation movie that it's crap. And it's actually a good movie.
I think it's the title.
The guy's a great actor.
Well, yeah.
The title's a joke.
But the irony is, it is exploitation, but it's actually a really good Dracula movie.
Yeah.
And even the sequel's not bad. The sequel has Pam Grier in it. I just I always like how they figure out how to continue these movies. Or I was like, well, we totally killed them last time.
Right.
But here's what we do. And another one I really liked was The Return of Count Yorga I'd never seen.
I haven't seen that one.
And I thought that was really excellent because I think it took place in the 70s and you're kind of doing a different setting for Dracula. And it wasn't really the Dracula retelling. It was a brand new story. So to me, that's what excites me. I obviously I like the original. I love the one that Coppola did.
Bram Stoker's Dracula.
I actually think that's my favorite.
It is.
You know, I think it tells the story
too.
the best. I think Gary Oldman's the best Dracula.
Yeah, it's the most experimental, sexualized,
and showing all the different things he can
abstract,
be, the different creatures.
Oh, yeah. No, my favorite's Bram Stoker's Dracula.
I think it's a special movie.
I thought Dracula, the Todd Browning, I think that's got a certain... It's got its charms and its gothic, its gothic atmosphere, but its pacing is really sluggish, and it's kind of... I watch it every once in a while, every other Halloween, not every Halloween, and I still have a hard time getting through it. I respect it, but I recently rewatched Bram Stoker's Dracula and just was like, this thing is a perfect storm of craziness, drugs, sex, everything,
and just gorgeous cinematography,
and just gorgeous.
And set
it's
pieces
super gorgeous. Yeah.
What about the blood of these whores is killing me? Udo Kier Blood for Dracula and Paul Morrissey one.
That one's just kind of a trip to watch.
It's such a weird movie.
Yeah, it's just the whole movie feels awkward, but it somehow comes together and works.
What did you guys think about? I mean, the central question I think that you guys asked on your website this week, which is Dracula scary? I think back to almost every film, and besides Bram Stoker's, it's very hard to think of him as a scary character because he's a romantic figure.
I think that's my problem is I don't even have a favorite Dracula film because I would probably say Monster Squad because I've never...
I agree with you.
I like
that Dracula is a terrifying, awesome Dracula.
Yeah.
Really powerful, monstrous.
Hissing, plays, he scared me when I was a kid, but none of the other Draculas do, to the point where they all kind of merge together in my brain. So I have problems kind of separating. If I love vampires, but I love them as kind of the shadowy underground, Near Dark or the Lost Boy.
Cool too.
I was going to say that when it's a Nosferatu Salem's Lot style, when it's a creature and not a normal man.
Yeah, Shadow of the Vampire, Salem's Lot.
Those scare me. I love the this is my secret I must conceal. Let the right one in or Martin.
But they're just vampires, not Dracula. Is
Dracula
figure, right?
is this regal,
figure.
stagey, theatrical. I mean, and we talk about Whitney talks about in the article how he goes past theatrical. He's operatic. Everything is romantic and stylized. And
wouldn't you like to see someone take a shot at it and not be like that though? I mean, even Langella's one that gets close.
Well,
but something even less.
Langella is the epitome of the romantic,
right?
Yeah.
Christopher Lee was a balance of romance and horror, you know, and Langella was purely playing right to the soap opera moms.
I'd love to see not quite as gritty as Fessenden's Habit, but now a movie happening right now in New York City. What does Dracula do? He's lived for 3,000 years. He's set himself up in a penthouse. Who is he now? I think that comes in other shows.
A good version might be in the remake of Fright Night, where it's he's clean cut, he's very attractive.
But that's not Dracula.
It's not Dracula.
It's a vampire.
It's a vampire, but he's charming.
Yeah, he's Dracula, but he's got those features, which is the long lost love, that he lost a long time ago.
Did you guys see the show Jonathan Rhys-Meyers played him? And
yes.
I really
liked
him. I liked him though. I really liked him in it. He had a high energy, but the guy I really liked was the guy in Penny Dreadful, and then the show kind of cut early. It's the last season, and he's just this interesting figure, but it felt like they didn't fully explore him by the end. But I was excited. I was like, ooh, that's a good Dracula. Because he was kind of serious.
What about the guy in Waxworks?
I can't remember.
That guy's pretty good.
He's like a beefcake, and they're eating raw meat. He's like, you don't
it's like the Peter Steele Dracula.
Yes, steak tartare.
So ridiculous.
You don't like steak tartare?
I never saw Dracula Untold. Did anyone see it here?
I did. I thought it was okay.
Yeah.
It was in a.
It's
superhero
Dracula.
Origin myth kind of story about the actual character Dracula.
Yes, it is about the prince to tragic hero, where it's here's why he doesn't like silver. Here's why the crosses don't work.
Now, see, that's where they all kind of blend together for me, because there was definitely a stretch in the late 90s, 2000s, where all of these kind of vampire films came out that were doing the mythos. There was one where he was supposed to be, I can't even remember, the guy who betrayed Jesus.
I was watching Dracula 2000 the other day.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is that Dracula 2000?
That's Dracula 2000.
Okay, I was like, or it might be Queen of Blood. Judas. Yeah, okay, that is.
Butler, right?
Queen of Blood was around that same time. That's the one where he was in a band. And
oh, man, I forgot about Vitamin C.
Yeah, so he's Judas in that one. But I remember all of these movies where they were kind of trying to explain the Dracula mythology.
Well, that was legitimately a cool idea. I was going to come to the table.
That one's kind of cool.
I couldn't finish it this week, but I was going to come to the table next week to talk about Dracula 2000. Because I decided to do a little revisit of that one. Oh my God, it is so bad.
I haven't seen it since
I
it
love you,
came
Patrick
out, and
Lussier,
that's all
but
I
come
remember
on,
is
man.
the Judas bit and being
And they
like,
made
well, that's
two more
cool.
of those, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
they did two more.
Unbelievable.
One with Rutger Hauer, and then
Really?
yeah.
Oh god.
Well, you know what? The one that was really interesting, and Ryan, I think maybe you read the script, but wasn't
Sherlock
like
Holmes.
No,
Oh.
wasn't Neil Marshall going to do the tale of the what's the name of the ship?
Oh, yes, the
Last
Mary
Voyage-
Celeste.
No. Last Voyage of the Demeter.
The last
Demeter.
voyage of the Demeter. Yeah,
Demeter. Yeah.
Well, you know when they're
When
transporting,
they're taking him to
Dracula,
England. Last
and
Voyage
it comes and they're all dead, and
there was
they
a-
were going to do that story on the
Oh, cool.
on the ship.
Oh, that'd be
yeah.
cool.
where he keeps coming out, and yeah.
Yeah.
It was basically like a creature feature on a boat, you know,
Yeah.
and it was a period piece, and it was about them transporting, and they don't know, and it's told. It was cool. There was a piece I did when I was at Shock Till You Drop that was kind of like the multiple Dracula projects that are in production or like in development.
That's what it was,
And there was
yeah.
Last Voyage of the Demeter. There was Vlad that Charlie Hunnam was developing, and he wrote. And then there was Dracula Year Zero, which became
Yeah.
Dracula Untold. And then there was a couple other ones, but. The Last Voyage of the Demeter was a really well-written one by this writer, Bragi Schutt, and it put him on the map in terms of Hollywood, you know, Hollywood credibility, and he became a fast-rising screenwriter in town. But that was one that, like, Patrick Tatopoulos was going to direct, Neil was going to direct. It was, like, multiple filmmakers that, like, kept coming on board, but they just never pulled the trigger.
So do you think that they could make a Dracula film now and have it be scary?
I think
I don't
somebody
think
could if they
so.
have to
It has to be.
reinvent
Well, yeah,
what he's
I
been
mean,
doing
that,
for the
that
last
one.
few
That one
years.
sounds cool to me.
That
but,
does sound
but,
good, especially with
But
Neil,
yeah, I think
yeah.
contemporary is the key. Like that was the thing that's interesting about that documentary is they keep mentioning how for whatever reason you think Dracula and they just kept retelling it in the past, with the exception of what's the one that Christopher Lee did, Dracula 1972,
But that was, it
Which
involved
was
time
kind of
travel.
badass because
Time
Dracula
travel.
was like a
Dracula
businessman.
right?
Yeah, I like
See,
that
that
one.
sounds cool
It
to
was
me.
funky.
I don't know. It's just, I mean, like, I think that the Dracula as a name is a well-known commodity that people kind of look at and then they go, haha, okay, it's like old world monsters. You know?
I wonder though if you
would
didn't
have to
title it, and if that was like a shock halfway, like quarter of the way through, you revealed this character's identity, like, oh shit,
but
that
if you-
could be done.
But if you I imagine that if you build a lot of goodwill in that movie, that you don't call Dracula and you hide his name until like
people
an
get pissed
hour,
off.
1 hour in, then you say, "Oh, it's Dracula."
That might work.
What if M. Night directs it?
That would completely probably distract them from the rest of the
Yeah.
goodwill that you built up making the movie.
it's the
And
last
that's
5
all the
minutes. M. Night Shyamalan twist.
And he was Dracula.
Holy shit, he's Dracula.
I don't know, because Dracula seems like so much like kids' fodder, right? Like even my daughter's really into the show Monster High, and the main character is Dracula's daughter. Her name's Draculora.
Dr. Dracula, yeah.
Dr. Acula.
Dr.
Yeah.
Acula.
Remember that? But the one I don't remember if he's Dracula. You saw it recently, Brides of Dracula, the one where the guy's like redhead.
Yeah, I think he's supposed
It's
to
a
be.
gorgeous movie. That's probably my favorite.
Because
The Hammer.
they mentioned they didn't ask Christopher Lee to do that
Right,
one.
and that's super
Or
weird.
I think it was. I can't forgive me for the timeline, people listening. I know it's in the doc, but I think it was like because they had already committed to Peter Cushing as Van Helsing.
Right, yeah, he's in
But
it.
Christopher Lee had been the Frankenstein monster. He had not clicked yet as Dracula. You know,
Yeah.
they were both successful, and it might have been post Brides of Dracula where they're like, "What if we just put them both in the same movie?" I think I'm getting that
makes
right.
sense.
I'm
That
not
makes
sure.
sense.
Okay.
It's a Terrence Fisher. It's a good one.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it can be scary. I mean, I don't think any of those are really scary movies. I mean,
Well,
besides,
then there's the entertainment value because one of my personal favorites, my old roommate showed me that Hammer at one point had made a Dracula movie with the Shaw Brothers.
oh yeah,
Oh,
that
which
one
is Golden
Legends of the
Vampire.
Seven Golden
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Legend of the Seven Golden
It's
Vampires.
amazing.
That movie's actually awesome.
good.
Yeah.
Like really awesome. I know. I think it's on a triple pack on DVD with a couple of the Christopher Lee ones. So that's a worthwhile
solid.
package.
That's
and the best performance, in my opinion, is still Klaus Kinski in the Herzog one. I think his portrayal is he's taking like what he saw of Nosferatu and giving it actual characterization.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I don't
poetry
even
and-
think of that one as Dracula. I think of it more as
Yeah,
like
it's
the
Nosferatu.
shadow of a vampire
Yeah,
creature.
he is that creature. But just I stumbled on this, and I'll post it for people. A 10-minute interview. It's the only time he was on U.S. talk show with Letterman, early Letterman.
Wow.
And it's right after he did that movie, and he's such a strange character to interview. And Letterman's asking about the makeup, and he goes, "I hated the makeup, and I hated Werner. I don't want to work with him, but he makes me put on, I do it, I laugh at him, he's silly man, But it's a great, I'll post it. It's a really, Letterman, it's kind of like when he had to do Joaquin Phoenix, when Joaquin Phoenix was crazy that time.
Oh, that one, yeah.
He was just fucking with him. It's kind of like that, but real.
Wow.
But Kinski took it seriously. That's the thing. If you take these characters seriously and you don't play them just as the romantic cliche, you could get something interesting out of, because it's such a great lore. Same with Wolfman. I mean,
do we know how they're redoing it for this new Universal?
No,
thing?
there was rumors that were going to bring in what's his face?
One?
Yeah, the Dracula 2000, Iron Dracula Untold, but who knows?
Yeah. See that falls to me in like the underworld universe where I just don't take those monsters seriously. Yeah. But we'll see how The Mummy turns out. I mean, I like Tom Cruise, and I think that could be a good movie. Yeah. I hope.
We'll see. Let us know if you find any of them scary. We're always curious to hear what you think.
Scary, and what are the best ones?
And check out
I'm always looking for them.
The article that we have up, and is the 1931 Dracula still scary? And it kind of goes through and evaluates why it's not scary, why most people perceive it as not, and then ultimately, why it would have been perceived as scary at the time, and why people might still find it so today.
Yeah.
Listener questions.
All right.
Oh, wait. I
What do we
just
got?
want to drop 2 movies that I saw this week.
Oh, you got this.
Ryan, we moved past that. I'm sorry, we're done.
It's all over now.
I just want to mention. No, I just want to
Ryan's
mention 2
been
movies
seething for 20 minutes.
No. I just want to drop 2. I mean, I'll save the other ones for next week because I caught up on 2 movies that I had not felt like I had never seen.
Oh, cool.
One being Intruder. The grocery store one.
Oh yeah,
I've never seen it. It's an awful movie, but I've
only seen the cover. The cover's
I'll talk
great.
about that next week. I finally got to see Alone in the Dark with Donald Pleasence.
Oh, that's right. You wanted to see.
I was just talking about it at the start.
Yeah.
Did you get off TCN?
No. Alone in the Dark. You said he knows you're alone.
No, both they were back to back on TCN. It was a double feature.
Got it. So Alone in the Dark.
No.
I saw it through other means because I couldn't find it anywhere else.
Yeah, that's cool.
But what a weird movie.
Yeah.
What a weird movie about a bunch of escaped psychopaths that take advantage of a town-wide blackout, and then the movie pontificates about natural energy versus nuclear energy. So
and everyone's in it.
Everybody's in it. Everybody's in the movie.
And a hockey mask killer.
Yeah, a hockey mask killer that shows up for a bit and then disappears. Mm-hmm. But it's just such an oddball movie with a great twist because there was like a buried nugget in there that I didn't see coming
and
at
a
all.
hot babysitter.
And
the opening scene, so as soon as I saw it this time, because I didn't watch the whole thing again, opening sequence, which is a dream scene, it seems to me to set the bar for everything that Nightmare did in the sequels, which he directed too. So I was like, oh my God, even the lighting and the diner thing, it was like exactly the same.
Oh, absolutely. The kind of oddball, oddball,
surreal
Nightmare logic.
It's really, so if you, for no other reason, watch the start of it and you'll go, oh, it's a Nightmare.
The other thing I want to drop on you guys is this 1964 film called Seance on a Wet Afternoon. Richard Attenborough.
Seance on a Wet Afternoon.
Oh, yeah. I saw that on your desk.
Richard Attenborough stars in this movie about a couple who kidnap a child and hold her for ransom because the wife who is in this relationship is a medium. And what happens is once they kidnap the kid, she goes to the parents and is like, I can help you find your kid. I'm a medium. Like, I can help you.
Oh, wow.
And
that's
she
so
basically,
sleazy.
it's super crazy. And so what she does is she uses the kidnapping as a way to boost her fame. And then, of course, things go awry. But it is a fantastic movie. It's on Hulu. Criterion Collection, it released it. Black and white. It's got a little bit of slow burn quality to it, but please check it out because it was one of those weird movies I've never seen before. I bought the VHS at like Monsterpalooza. I was like, oh, that's a cool VHS. Of course, the VHS didn't work. Go VHS. And then I had to turn to digital to watch it. So it is a terrific film that's based on a book. I'm currently trying to track down the book so I can read that and just see if there's any
I am a
gaps.
huge fan of that film. I think it's fantastic. But weirdly enough, I saw it after a New Zealand Film Festival. There's a Japanese remake.
Yes, called Seance.
And I was watching it, and it's about a guy, exactly the same story, except the guy at the start, it's just like a blowout. It's a guy who has to go out into the trees to get good sound of wind. Yeah. And so he's sound recording wind, and then he ends up abducting the girl, and then as things happen, and it's the exact same thing. But then when I went back to watch the original, I was like, oh, I like the original more. It is, Attenborough's really good.
I want to track down that because I'm fascinated by this movie and how it got made now. And then final thing, I just want to give a shout out to the Overlook Film Festival. We haven't given it a mention since they got announced, but this is taking place in Oregon at the end of April next year. You guys can find them on Facebook and Twitter, but we're going to have a part of it. I'm on the advisory board with a bunch of other great folks like Elijah Wood and the SpectreVision team and a couple other folks in town. But basically, it's the same creative team behind the Stanley Film Festival, but they branched off and went to the Overlook which is basically the hotel that Stanley Kubrick shot The Shining.
The one
at.
you actually see.
You
in
see
the helicopter shots.
and apparently, from my understanding, is the drive up there is the drive that they take at the beginning of the
Oh
film.
man, we get to go up the Sidewinder.
Yes.
That's
So,
gonna
hope we
be
get there so
awesome.
hard.
so I would suspect you'll see most of us there.
Suspect.
We want this to
I'm,
happen.
I'm working on this. I'm working on this.
this
Well, we
must
got-
happen.
I-
Listen, yeah, talking about suspicions.
We got some events there. I'm pretty psyched.
Well, you guys for sure.
Yeah.
So maybe all of us will make an appearance.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's all gears in the works.
And speaking of suspicions,
Yes.
For you guys listening out there, yesterday on the site we announced that Blumhouse.com will be sponsoring Texas Frightmare.
Yes, we did.
Wait, the festival we used to go to and haven't been for a year?
Isn't that funny?
Yeah,
Wow.
we skipped
I
a year,
get to go to my
guys.
first Texas Frightmare.
Wait,
Yeah.
we didn't say we were all going. We just said that Blumhouse.com was sponsoring it.
Okay, we
What
might
can
be
that mean?
there.
All right.
Okay, we're gonna be
Ryan,
there.
it's a process in the works. I'm talking to our people. I'm gonna try to get you there.
I just said I was going.
Gears
I
are
don't know.
turning, Ryan. Gears are turning.
It's the likelihood is very good.
Aren't they
Yeah.
having an amazing reunion of some kind?
I just saw that
having,
they've
like,
got
multiple.
yeah, but
multiple
something
reunions.
we all really loved. I
yeah,
can't
they
remember
got
what
a
it was.
couple people from Stranger Things. The kid from The Shining is going to be there.
Yeah.
Danny.
Danny.
That's been one of my life
Danny
dreams.
is
to meet
gonna
Danny
be there.
Lloyd.
So weird.
Especially after I started dating the Shining twins last time I was there.
The cast of 31 is coming. Yeah, they've got a lot of, and you can check out the Blumhouse.
What a
All
reunion.
right.
Hey, I like that Richard Brake guy. He's
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
great. He's
Oh.
going to be there. So there we go.
Our guy John Humphrey would be
questions?
really excited about the 31 race.
I'm going to introduce this one more time.
All right.
Listener questions.
All right, great.
Don't
What
get
is
into
that?
That was
No.
a button I pushed.
Don't get into that.
Hold on, one more time.
It adds production value.
Let's hear it again.
Ryan's
No,
going to
no,
do
no,
it.
no.
You don't have it.
He's no. Anyway, so instead of last week we did a little trivia. This week we opened it up to you guys, just so we can answer some of your questions. So let's burn through some of these really quick. Mike O'Day.
Ryan still hasn't recovered from my falsetto.
Listener questions.
Reminds me of another podcast.
Mike, yeah, it does
really?
remind yeah.
I don't listen to that, so I wouldn't know.
Go on,
Podcast.
go
All
on,
right,
go
guys,
on.
come
All right,
on.
listener
Start
questions.
podcast wars here.
No.
All right, so from Mike O'Day, we'll start off with his. He says, I'm trying to get my girlfriend into watching horror. She's relatively young, 26, and I figure that 90s horror is a good way to start. What is each of your recommendations for her to start with?
Lake Placid. It's fun, accessible. What? It is.
Really? All right.
A David E. Kelly horror comedy?
Not even, no hesitation. Very like, Lake
None
Placid.
whatsoever.
It's like,
Lake Placid.
no whammies. I'm doubling down on Lake Placid.
seriously.
Mike, maybe you should
It's
listen to the girl.
fun. It is accessible. It still has some scares in it, but at the same time, you leave it, and it's fun. I mean, I think that's kind of one of the biggest things when you're entering horror is
Fun.
you don't want to be like, okay, well, let's just event horizon this
All right,
shit.
all right,
You want to kind of start fun.
Okay.
Depends
Lake
how-
Placid, bitches.
It depends how much of a rookie. If we're talking like she hasn't seen any of the major ones, I
Yeah,
would
you
actually
say-
go further back to me. Nightmare on Elm Street is such a great
He said 90s.
entry point. No, I know, but I'm saying
That's
like
why
go
I went
a little
Lake Placid.
earlier. If I have to go 90s, I'm going Cherry Falls.
We're already off to
Yeah,
a
yeah.
terrible
You might
start
get
with our
some.
recommendations.
No, Cherry Falls is good. No,
Cherry Falls?
He said 90s.
You might get some, I
that's
said.
2000. Well, technically 90s. I would say
I'm missing on both decades. I missed the mark twice.
Scream's a good one. I think
but that's
if
obvious.
you're
Oh, yeah,
aiming
but
for 90s,
that's a
it's
given.
obvious.
I would say Candyman.
Candyman's great.
That's a little intense.
No, because you have a strong female protagonist.
Romantic.
You have a great procedural kind of.
Romantic.
You have a great procedural
fine.
element. You're dealing with an urban legend.
It's got
all that kind of
beef.
stuff. Just, yeah.
I say horror comedy, so I say either Shaun of the Dead or American Werewolf in London. I feel like those will
Neither 90s.
are good. It does. He said I figured 90s.
Okay,
The wording
okay,
because
fine.
she's in her 20s. Could be any horror.
All right. So hopefully we've answered that question.
I want to go deeper into this.
If we're aiming 90s, I would also say Mimic was one of my. I liked that one.
I haven't rewatched it
That was
since,
okay.
but I want to watch the director's cut, which
Yeah.
I've never seen.
It's a fun little film.
All right. Alex Bowley asks, what film would you most like to see a sequel to where none exists? He goes with Nightbreed, which I think
which
you'd
we've
probably
talked about a lot
Yeah,
of
we've
times.
talked about that.
I feel like this is something we've made it like done 8 articles on regularly because we watch movies all the time, and every time I'm like revisiting something, I was like, why didn't they make another one of these?
Yeah.
So it kind of comes up a lot. I think it's a sin that there was never a sequel to either version of My Bloody Valentine. That's kind of the obvious one.
Yep. And Deep Rising.
Oh,
Boom!
you and
right.
Becca, love child.
Dropping
Becca
some
loves-
Treat Williams on that.
We'll talk, Ryan.
I would just say, funnily enough, because
that was a shout out to Brian Collins, y'all.
he mentioned Candyman. The reason I'm going to say Candyman, even though the sequels exist, because I saw it again recently, is the ending of Candyman, which basically posits her becoming this figure of horror. It's like, it would be really interesting to have seen a Bernard Rose directed film about that character.
So
I would kill to see that.
I'd literally say it's maybe in the last week or two. It probably won't happen, but there's an interview with Bernard Rose saying that they're like, what project? Because he's been like, he redid Frankenstein, and I think he's wanted to do his own take on all the monsters. I don't know if that's going to happen, but they asked him, what would you really love to make? He's like, well, me and Tony would love to do a proper sequel to Candyman, a sequel to ours. So it's just funny that you mentioned that. I think the problem is the rights are in so many places now.
Sure.
That
They're
it'd be
all messed
really
up.
difficult to obtain that property. But I'm with you.
I
would love
just
to
think
see
that was quite haunting
Bernard
ending,
Rose
and it's like,
to
I'd
see
like
it.
and Bernard Rose doing it. It's a beautifully made film.
Yeah. Let's see. Daniel Harrington, who is the gentleman that has a Shockwaves tattoo on his body.
Shit.
So extra special shout out to you, Daniel. Since horror TV is on the rise, what are some horror properties you would like to see adapted into a miniseries or TV show?
This one was rumored, but I was always psyched by the Critters concept.
What?
Seriously, it was rumored as a TV show, and I was like, oh, that'll be
You know what?
fun.
You guys are
and
laughing.
then it never happened.
But let me tell you something. The other day, I think it was on Elric, I caught a little, like the middle of Critters 2, and I kind of forgot. I mean, you think of Critters, but I forgot about like the whole alien. Like the
there's like a
faceless
larger
aliens that
yeah.
become like warriors that fight them, and I'm like, you know
the whole
what?
thing.
This is like a whole like sci-fi it could be a sci-fi epic kind of horror thing.
And I'm not saying
So,
like
I get
take
that.
it serious or anything.
No, it'd be
I'm
fun.
saying like take it like Ash versus the Evil Dead, where you are aware that you're watching little fuzzy, balls with
that's
teeth.
the tone of the original.
But yeah, I always thought that was an interesting TV show concept that I was kind of like a miss that it never happened.
I would say there are two. I would say one is Cat People. I think Cat People would be really interesting, and also The Howling.
Oh yeah.
The Howling would be interesting as well. I think just because you're dealing with that community, and you could deal with all sorts of kind of like it could be a weirdo commentary on relationships today, as well as being a kind of a scary werewolf show. It's mostly like, oh no, Cat People is universal. Cat People would be interesting as well, just to kind of delve into their background and their history and stuff like that. And another one I've always wanted to do is Night of the Comet.
Oh yeah, the big one too.
No.
Interesting. What about you, Rob?
You know
There's
what?
so many. I always think of this every week when I watch things, but then it's kind of.
Well,
And
yeah,
we've done a
because they've-
series of lists of these on the site, I know.
Yeah, I mean, so like all the big ones have been adapted.
Yeah.
They're already there. I guess one that I would pull out of nowhere. I've been periodically watching the Wolf Creek series, which I actually think is really well done so far. I think I'm like 3 in. And seeing that style, I would love it if there was like a 6-episode miniseries of Texas Chainsaw in that vein. Something similar where it's like the families, like almost like the plot of 2, where it's like Lefty, like the Dennis Hopper character chasing these guys. Like I think that like that would be the most batshit like kind of show if you had this whole family on the run from, like a Lefty type. I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like I come up with something different every week. I'll do it on Twitter.
I will also say that I've always, and hey, I can say this now because I'm writing one of the comic books. I've always thought that Hellraiser.
Can we have a sound effect for any cheap plug?
I know, cheap plug. Come on, guys.
Yeah, congratulations.
I'm really fucking excited
No,
about that.
seriously.
Yeah,
I've
no,
been able
that's
to give
cool.
you a congrats. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
I hadn't even mentioned it on the show yet.
Hellraiser.
It just dawned on me. Yeah, so Dave and I wrote one of the upcoming Hellraiser comic books that Sarah
Is it like
back
a
out.
graphic novel or a single like a comic you can buy?
It's going to be like a single comic
Okay,
that you
cool.
can buy. But they're doing a series, and so we're like involved in the project, I'll
Nice.
say, in a larger capacity.
cool.
But yeah, so the Hellraiser comics from the 90s, which I know I've talked about on Killer POV, were always really influential to me because they were kind of anthology, like where each week it was the Hellraiser mythology, but in a completely different setting. Like one was in the South Africa and the apartheid, and then the next week it would be medieval times, and but always with the Hellraiser mythos. And I always thought that those would make like a crazy good anthology TV show.
Hold the phone, motherfuckers. I got it. The best, just like Westworld. So imagine the scale of Westworld. HBO. They live.
Yeah.
In that world, and
sure.
then come down. You're figuring out, and oh man, without wrestlers. Even though I love them,
Hey,
don't
come
get
on,
me
Roddy
wrong.
was amazing in
But
that.
if you're doing
The
a
fight scene's an
contemporary
entire
version-
episode.
I
yeah, but a
hope.
contemporary, like
Did
the
you
way
see episode
Westworld
6?
keeps
It's
going
all
deeper.
fight.
It's all fight.
I know. I
It's
think
like
that would
their
be cool.
wall episode.
and especially topical.
Yes.
Because we now live in it.
Elric, we said we weren't going to discuss it.
Consume.
He keeps bringing it up. Let's see. Clancy Peterson wants to know, pairing up films is like making a good mixtape. I agree. The movement between films and how each of the audience feel in the moment is as important as the films you decide to screen. What are some of your memorable screenings of multiple films, ones that worked or ones that epically failed? So I guess like best double bills sort of deal.
I'm going to drop a name, and I feel bad for this, but it's always stuck with me. When I was on the set of Jennifer's Body and I was interviewing, I had an opportunity to like hang out with Diablo Cody, and I got to learn what a big horror fan she was. And we were talking about great double features, and this one always stuck with me because I would love to program it, and I think she might have. But it was Fright Night and Nightmare on Elm Street 3.
Yeah.
It was just like, yes, that is a perfect pairing of everything that sums up my youth and the fun horror I gravitated to. So I'm going to go with Fright Night and Nightmare on Elm Street 3.
I like it.
This one's a bit of a deep cut, and then a blockbuster film combined together. So when I was first researching House Sue, the Japanese film House, a long time ago, Criterion had just put it out on DVD, and they talked about it, about how it was supposed to be the Japanese answer to Jaws. And you watch the film and you're like, how the fuck? Because it's about a slumber party full of girls who go to a house and there's a ghost and one of them gets her head cut off and there's an evil cat, and it's just a batshit crazy movie. But we decided to pair it up with Jaws. So a group of us got together and watched Jaws and then House Sue, which was supposed to be the Japanese version of Jaws. And it's amazing because you watch it and you catch notes of like, well, maybe, but it became the most analytic discussion I think I've ever had about a film, where we were kind of like trying to break down how they could have taken one and made it to the other and how it could have worked. But so I recommend watching the two of them back to back because it will really make you think. So.
I liked, one I tried recently when they both came out was, and I talked about it on the old show, but Messiah of Evil and It Follows.
Oh, good pairing.
Because you can also throw in Carnival Souls and Soul Survivor too. Because they all have a similar tone. But I think Messiah of Evil and It Follows together actually improve both films, because there is this weird continuity of something that is unexplainable that's falling. Neither film really ever fully explains what's going on. And I think that improves both of those movies.
I also think a little bit of Tremors and Deep Rising.
Nice. You're working on
a monster movie that kicked off a cool decade and then
one that
and then closed it out.
it.
Yeah.
I guess we could read another one here.
Yeah.
If I could read it. Let's see.
We'll do one more.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, no pressure. Have you got them up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me see.
I haven't read them yet.
What horror movie? All right. Jay Bromfield asks, what horror movies, if any, did each of you guys appreciate more after rewatching them, and why do you think that happened?
Well, for me, it's I don't know. I mean, I have to think about a specific, but it's almost all early Cronenberg. He's one of those directors, every time I saw him when I was young, I just wasn't ready for them. Like Dead Ringers, I've talked about before, just traumatized me too much. And there's quite a few of those films that are, I guess, the serious horror films that I've now gravitated to, ironically. When I first saw them, they were often not what I wanted when I was young, and they kind of were too much for me. Dead Ringers being the ultimate. And then I saw it years later, and I was like, wow, it's a fucking masterpiece, you know?
Yeah, I gotta agree that it definitely, it was the ones that I watched way too young and didn't understand. And then watching later, I was like, oh, this is like next level shit that I didn't catch when I was a kid. I also will say I hated It Follows the first time I saw it. And the second time, I can't say it was my favorite film of the year, but I had a lot more respect for the scares that it pulled off.
Yeah. I would say, I mean, there were two. One, which is way overdue on my watching list, and I need to do this very soon, is Don't Look Now with Sutherland. And I picked up the Criterion not too long ago, and it's just been sitting on my shelf. I need to watch it. But I remember the first time I watched it, I just didn't get it. Like, I could not. I thought it was too somber for my taste, too grim for my taste, and then the finale came, and I was like, "Oh, that's the movie I would have loved to have seen." Yeah. But and then I watched it again, and I was like, "Oh no, I was an idiot. I get it." But I want to see it now with some even fresher eyes. And then the other one is Session 9, which I thought I absolutely hated. And then
I haven't yet to revisit, but I got the blue, so I'm going to, because I kind of was like, I remember thinking it was okay, but it wasn't the big deal everyone was
saying. When I saw it
in
the 90s, I was bored by it. I was seriously like, it's a guy listening to tapes the whole time.
It's a guy, and it was just like there's some sort of I don't know. There's a quality about it that's just too lackadaisical. Like I was like, oh, I hate these guys. They're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. There's no forward momentum. But it's not a movie about forward momentum. It's about the here and now and the kind of mental degradation this guy is going through and losing it. And
I'll watch it
and
this
all
week.
the other things that kind of come into play, sound effects, atmosphere, all that stuff. It's all part of the larger scheme. I watched it here recently in our screening room, and I was just like, nope, I still like this now. Yep.
The other big one I had recently was actually, as a kid, I actually was underwhelmed by the remake of The Blob, because I think when I was young, when it actually came out on VHS, I was like, all I could see was Kevin Dillon's hair and his performance, and I didn't like it at the time. And rewatching it at the screening Ryan put on, and then the Twilight time, it's literally one of my favorite films now. I love that movie, and so it's funny that I wouldn't have liked it when I was young. When it's more likely you might have, that kind of movie.
Right.
I think it's just phenomenal now. It's such a fun movie.
Yeah, that's one I loved as a kid. But no, I'm with Ryan. Session 9 is a big one. A lot of the stuff that Scream Factory kind of puts out again is always kind of, it gives me a reason to revisit some of those movies. So off the top of my head, I've always said on the show earlier, I love the Scanners sequels, but I don't like the first one as much. And I think it's because of that the lead actor is not as strong as the rest of the cast, or as, at least the sequels are kind of over the top and fun for me.
Poor Michael Ironside.
But well, no, Michael Ironside's great in it. He's great in it.
Yeah,
it's
it
the other. There's like
it's the other guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Had it been David Hewlett in that one, the guy from Penn, he would have been great because he's intense.
But Criterion put it out on Blu-ray maybe a year ago or so, and it is like such a flawless, pristine presentation of the movie that I hit all the lights off. And even though I had a newfound appreciation for it. A lot of times it's when these movies get restored and you get to see them in like the best possible quality. So Scanners, Prince of Darkness is one that I didn't like that much as a kid, and I still find it. It's so weird. In fact, I think my appreciation for it came. Ryan showed it last year here at our offices in our screening room as kind of a. Weird movies that Blumhouse would have made in the late 80s, 90s.
Let me introduce you to some movies that you might have missed, and that on a budget we could have made.
Was
in the late 80s.
Before or after it played in the church?
It was after.
It was after.
Oh yeah. We saw it in the church, and actually, I really appreciated that too. That was a great.
I actually completely agree. That's one I felt like as a kid was my least favorite Carpenter,
right,
and now I really like it.
Elric's referencing they actually did a one-off screening in the church it takes place in, and him and I got to go.
And who was sitting next to me on the right?
It was one of the guys from Big Trouble in Little China, the lightning guy. And we got all excited, but it was cool. to be in the actual room where all of it takes place was a really fun thing. So. That's a good one. But all righty. Well, anyways, thank you so much for your questions. We really appreciate it. And, we could keep this up on the Facebook page as well. Yeah. Speaking of socials, obviously, if you like us on Facebook, it's just Shockwaves. On Twitter, we're Shockwaves Pod.
And Instagram.
Instagram is Shockwaves Podcast.
Yep.
Yeah.
So on Instagram, we're Shockwaves Podcast.
We tried to stay consistent, but sometimes social media just doesn't allow that.
But they won't allow it. There's other Shockwaves out there. Books, vinyl releases, everything.
Apparently.
So we're trying.
And more reviews. We're always looking for more reviews on iTunes.
Yeah.
That helps boost our
keep
star
spreading the
rating,
love
keep
now.
spreading the love, all that stuff.
That we really appreciate. And so that's that. And we'll be back with part 2 of this episode on Monday, where you guys love when we have like the Scream Factory guys on. We did a great episode with Severin. We're going to talk to some of our friends from Lionsgate who are behind the new Vestron line. So hopefully you guys will get a kick out of that. We'll see you on Monday.
Have a good weekend.
Okay, and welcome to episode 25, part 2. This is the interview portion of our show, and we're very excited. I'm your host, Rob G., and I'm sitting here with Mr. Elric Kane, Rebekah McKendry, and Ryan Turek. The whole gang.
The whole gang's here.
Whole gang is here, we promise
For a
you.
momentous occasion.
It feels like we never left.
And we've got 2 very special guests with us today. For you guys, when we tend to have people involved in some of these DVD companies on the show, like Scream Factory, and we had Severin on earlier this year. Those episodes tend to be some of our most popular. And I, as a fan myself, it's because I know I like to buy this stuff. I like to hear how this all works in terms of acquiring the rights and what it takes to put a movie out. It's one thing to like see something on a VHS shelf and be like, I wish they would just put out that movie, but to actually physically get there is always fascinating. And now there's a whole new line coming through Lionsgate of the Vestron video titles. So joining us from Lionsgate is our friend Chela Johnson.
Hello.
Hi. And what is your title again? You were the head of video.
Vice President of Marketing in Home Entertainment.
Thank you.
Excellent.
I should have asked that before we started. But
It's all good.
And you've been there how long?
Most of my adult life.
And I only asked that because I met you at a rando convention, like somewhere in like Alhambra, that Bill Moseley was at, and Andrew Devoff, and you and I just hit it off. We were like, "Oh yeah, you work for Lionsgate? I write for this really cool website called CreatureCorner.com."
Yeah.
And then we became best friends.
that was the
It's been about
It's been a
17 years.
while. Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I know.
I started when I was 12. Don't let the good looks fool you.
The entire over a decade that I was with Fango, I worked with her the entire way. So
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, she on top. She's one of us on top of working for Lionsgate,
absolutely,
and being in that position. She is a huge horror fan. We've all talked to her about horror stuff.
Well, that's what what's great is that you rarely hear about people who are in our and who are on the right side of things.
Sure.
Not everybody in the studio system is just an exec who doesn't know what the hell they're talking about.
No, there's a few of us.
There are some of
us.
out there that actually did good.
Yes.
Because it's the genre that has such great people in it, and that's so instead of it just being like another movie, it's like it's people and it's what you care about, and it just makes all the difference.
Yeah, there's a passion there, and I feel like you have to do every release right because there are people who are really, really passionate about this title, no matter how small it is.
Yeah, someone at the studio's got to give a shit about it. For real. For real.
And we also have, when I asked Chela to do this with us, I asked her, well, is there anybody else from the Lionsgate crew that you'd like to bring with you that might be fun for the show? And I kick myself for not thinking of it first, but sitting with us is Mr. Garo Setian. Did I say your name right?
You can say it that way.
I can say that. Listen, that's why I always go by G, because I can never get names right. But Garo is here with us.
Hello, everybody.
How do you say your last name, sir?
Setian.
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 Yes.
And Garo is a good friend of ours. He well, what's your title officially? I call you editor.
Yeah, I'm the an avid editor at Lionsgate of creative services.
And Garo edits a lot of the trailers, including all the trailers that you've seen for these new Vestron releases. I'm looking at a list of all your trailers, and it's like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds.
You've won awards for your trailer editing, right?
Yes.
Yes.
3 Golden Trailer Awards.
Wow.
For what films were they?
I won Trashiest Trailer for a movie called Drive Through, which Chela and I worked on, and I also got a Best Foreign Horror for The Eye 3.
Oh wow.
Yep.
Nice.
And 1 year I got Best Anime Trailer for Doctor Strange.
Wow.
I'll just tell people I did the Doctor Strange trailer and won an award for it.
Yeah.
I just love. I was freaking out about the Nurse 3D trailer one day, and you were like, "Oh yeah, I did that one." And
I did the TV. I did the TV.
okay, yeah.
TV spot.
Gary, you've also done some really, really fun stuff. I remember one time you sent me over it was a Leprechaun versus Wishmaster thing.
Yes.
And I have forever had that on a drive somewhere in a drawer. And every once in a while when I dust off this drive and I go, what's Lepwish? And I click on it and I realize it is the Leprechaun versus Wishmaster goofy trailer you put together.
Oh, we should do that on
ultimate
Purge
mashup.
night.
It was the ultimate great
it's
mashup.
there.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I went through every one of those movies, broke it all down,
It was so
all of
amazing.
them, and got them to fight each other.
And this
amazing.
was, but the great thing is, it was before we started getting these on the regular.
Right.
But as the internet became more powerful, and we were starting to see more fan-fueled mashups. You were ahead of the curve with this stuff, and you delivered the goods.
We should post up Lepwitch. I think that we'd see some
if it
people who
still
love it.
exists.
I'll see if I can-
That was 2005.
Yeah.
That's when we met,
Yep.
around there. And,
Yeah.
and I remember it was at the Sci-Fi Awards.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is crazy. And also, Garo's knowledge of horror, not only just horror, but like in particular creature features and like the Godzilla stuff is just unparalleled. We were on a trivia team together for a little while.
Right.
He's the last of my trivia teammates to finally make it onto the show. I apologize for that, but
thank you
we
for
could say
having
we saved the best for last.
He still plays every month Dead Right Horror Trivia, and he is always a force to be reckoned with.
And he's also the most optimistic of movie viewers because we have recently we have formed the weirdest. We need a name for it. We have formed the weirdest group of dudes that watch movies in the last couple of months.
Dudes that watch movies is a pretty good name.
Maybe that should be
Neil
it.
called it the Bad Movie Brigade.
Is that right? Okay. It consists of, here's what we had in common. There were these 6 dudes that had the desire to see Metal Storm 3D.
Oh, yeah.
And I have a 3D TV
I'm
and
sorry.
Metal Storm 3D. So it's like Neil Marshall, Garo, Josh Miller, who does Cinefamily's Friday Night Frights, Dave Parker, and who's our last member?
Andrew Cash?
And Steve Scarlatta. Great Steve
Scarlatta,
Scarlatta, who produced Jodorowsky's
That's
Dune.
That's like Mystery Men, right?
Yeah.
I know, right? There's no reason for these 6 dudes to get together, but we do, and we watch questionable movies, double features of sorts. We just did the 2 Hercules movies in 3Ds.
Are those the Lou Ferrigno ones?
No. The Rennie Harlan one, and then the Brett Ratner one.
Oh man!
But I
You
did
do.
bring my DVD double feature of those.
I own
that was in
the
between.
2 Lou Ferrigno ones because they
Yes.
were some of my faves when I was a kid. He plays them very straight. He's very serious through the whole thing. But I love the Lou Ferrigno
And he's
ones.
dubbed the whole movie.
The whole time.
Yeah.
Because
I
he's
have
got
no
this
idea.
very swarthy, smooth voice. So.
And I mean, the only reason I brought that up is because literally, we could be watching the most questionable movie, and halfway through, Garo, bless his heart, is like, well, this is pretty good. I mean, the production value and this is a pretty good story point, right? Like, he's the most optimistic of like.
Did I see you on Facebook bringing that optimism to Gods of Egypt? Was that you?
Yes, that was
course
me.
it was.
Yeah, I remember that discussion too.
Yeah, I actually liked it. I liked the movie. I mean, to me, it was
Bless you.
could-
I love that you love movies that much.
Yes,
that you will
yes.
find something in everything. But that's really
Dude,
cool.
the movie had giant snake monsters with Amazons riding on them, and they breathed fire.
That's the
movie.
Gods of
That's
Egypt.
what
That's it. That's all you need.
You know, I mean, I'm in.
He's done right there. Snakes, women on them.
Mic drop, boom.
So obviously we're going to delve into some of the stuff that you guys have done for Lionsgate. But before that, with everybody we talked to, because I mean, I know you guys, but I don't know little Chela. I don't know little Garo. What was it like?
You don't want to know little Garo.
Take us back.
Take us back
Tell
to
us
the
about
beginning.
Little Garo.
But no, what was it that got you into the genre? Because for us, obviously, we're of a certain age group, and we grew up with the Universal Monsters and the video generation, etc. So when did you fall in love with the genre?
I always loved horror, but I really got into it when I started being around more special makeup effects artists and getting introduced into that world. So that made me appreciate it all so much more. And that's when I started going to Fangoria Weekend of Horrors back in '95. And I just got sucked in. Again, it's like the people are great, and the films are just fun.
Was there any aspect that you, in terms of in the film business, that you were focusing on? Because you mentioned effects. So is that something that you just appreciated, or were you thinking about doing effects at some point? Like,
I was
what
never
it?
thinking about doing effects. I was kind of in that world a little bit, in that I was with somebody who was a special effects guy. So I got to know a lot about it. I learned a lot about it, and it was fascinating to me. It was actually really, really cool. Like, the whole monster making process was so cool. And so every time I just, all the blood and how you do this and how that happens, it just sucked me in.
Do you remember any of the specific movies when you were actually really young, though? Like the first one, because you mentioned you already kind of loved it, but that just kind of like, those ones that just, it feels like you saw it too young and it kept you up at night. Were there any titles like
Nothing
that?
really kept me up at night. I think it was mostly like all the 80s slasher horror. That's kind of what sucked me in. It was like spending the night at my friend's house and staying up all night watching horror movies.
Yeah, people never talk the social side of horror films when you're little. Such a big part of it.
Oh, yeah.
So basically, it was less about it was more about craft and just the kind of general fun of it that like really brought you in.
Yeah, and then going to the conventions and starting to know the people
community.
who were involved in it. Yeah, it was like the community was so positive and so fun and so nice, and just everybody's so enthusiastic about it. It's just. Why would you want to watch a drama or a chick flick when you can watch something so fun and make believe, because you don't want to have like regular life stuff when you watch it. You want to see monsters because that's fun. It's different. It's not
fantasy. I mean, we always talk about the fantasy aspect.
Yeah. Right.
We grew up in a time like kind of the 80s horror. Like, yes, there were slashers, but there was so much imagination and just fantasy to the movies that it was an escapism for us, you know?
Well, I find it interesting because a lot of the guests that come on here talk about the solo experience. You know, they come in and they go, well, I discovered it by myself and I was like watching movies, but for you,
yeah,
it's like,
not at all. It was
no,
totally
you had
social.
It was a total.
It was a party.
And
like
you
I
never
go to these
left that
conventions.
party.
Exactly. It's like, why would you not want to hang out with these people?
But you mentioned what was a huge thing for me too is I remember these slumber parties that we would have where it was like 15 girls and we would come, like everybody would bring a horror movie and that's all we would do all night long, and maybe like a scene or two from Dirty Dancing, but we would just fast forward to the dances and then we'd go back to the horror movies.
And then what happened?
We knew that was coming.
Settle, Elric.
Elric's giving me eyes. I'm like, don't give me those girls. Don't give me those eyes, Elric.
What about for you, Garo? Because obviously you've always been an appreciator of at least the monsters in these monster movies. So was it something that kind of appealed to you when you were really young?
Yeah, I was really into dinosaurs as a kid. Yeah. That's where it started, the love of dinosaurs. And then I'd seek out any movie with dinosaurs in it. And then you go to end up with Godzilla movies. And then I remember discovering Gamera movies. And, I'd watch them every afternoon when I get home from school. And then there was a thing called the 4 o'clock movie I grew up with, and that's what they do. They do like Monster Week, and it would be giant monster movies, and that was my favorite thing. But then they'd start doing other things like Hammer horror movies or Universal monster movies. So started digging into the Dracula and Frankenstein and all that kind of stuff. And then as I got a little older, then you discover, pay cable. We had that, and then suddenly you're seeing these 80s slasher movies and things like that. Mostly monster movies, though.
It was a little more fantastical, less grounded. That really attracted you.
Yeah. The prophecy. Remember stuff like that?
Oh my gosh, the beaver bear.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that bear. You know what? I always talk about how fans get everything they want, yet I'm in the corner going, I just want a baby prophecy bear that I can put on my couch and just and love him. That's all I want.
You're gonna come home, your dog's laying on the prophecy.
It's licking the prophecy bear.
I love you, prophecy bear.
Somebody get on that already. Come on, the merch
make me a pillow, John Squires.
Now, where are you both from originally?
I'm from
where
Massachusetts.
Did you grow up? Massachusetts.
Yeah.
I'm from D.C.
Oh, D.C. Right outside D.C. in Virginia. Awesome.
Maryland side.
Oh, nice. Fairfax
Kensington,
side.
Bethesda, yeah.
Fairfax, Reston, yeah.
And for both of you, what prompted you to move to Los Angeles?
I came out here with that guy who was doing effects, and I originally wanted to be in the music business and was studying that and trying to get into that, interning different places, labels and stuff. And then when I came out here and got an interview with A&M and saw what they were going to pay me after going to University of Notre Dame and having some real work experience, I was like, are you kidding me? And then decided, you know what, you can kind of have the best of both worlds to be in the movie business. So went that route.
Right. What about you, Garo?
I came out here for grad school at University of Southern California, and of course the main drive was to come out here and make movies somehow. And I was at USC for 4 years, and then I did sell a screenplay and, kind of did a few odd jobs here and there, and ultimately wanted to, I ended up getting more into editing. And I worked at an ad agency for a couple years. You did rip-o-matics, which were you'd take pieces of other old commercials and you'd put them together to create a new campaign, a look for that. And when I did that, I learned how to edit on the Avid. Because when I graduated from film school, they were still cutting on flatbeds and video.
Oh, Steenbecks.
Yeah, Steenbecks and what was it, the 8-plate or 6-plate or whatever that?
Exactly that.
We had one day where they would wheel out the Steenbeck and no one could touch it because it was ancient, and they would take the sheet off and then the professor would show how to do it. And I mean, we weren't doing digital yet when I was in school. We were using a toaster. No, we weren't doing film
Did
cutting.
You have 3/4-inch videotape?
Yeah, we had the tapes, and we had this thing called the toaster that did all our effects that crashed every 5 minutes. So I remember then you had tapes that you had to put out, and everything had to have a control track on it. And
gosh, I remember those things.
But I do remember the steam back in the fullback day where it was like, no one touch it. I'm going to show you, and then I'm going to wheel it back into the closet for another 365 days.
I don't know about you, Garo, but I felt like we were being punked because we paid so much to go to film school. And then on our way out, that's all I got. That's how I learned how to edit, was on a Steenbeck.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden on my way out, like
over.
literally the month before we graduated, they're like, so the school's going to get a new Avid system. And I'm like, are you serious? Is this the new future?
That was exactly
Yeah.
what happened to me. And I had to learn the whole thing over again. And I do remember, like, I previously was working at before I went to the ad agency, I was at a production company for commercials, and I was cutting just 3/4-inch reels for directors, like cutting them together. And but I set up their tape library and made it all really nice and neat. So that led to a job at an ad agency because they wanted me to set up their department all nice and neat. Yeah. And the thing that attracted me was they were getting an Avid, and I said, "Hey, if you can get someone to teach me how to use this, I will." Set up your whole AV department.
Nice.
Wow.
And that changed my life because that Avid experience, I eventually went from there to being an assistant editor at a trailer house. And I was always obsessed with movie trailers. So that became my new thing.
What's your favorite movie trailer of all time?
Well, I mean, there's so many good ones
There
now.
are, but I mean, like, what's the one that stands out in your mind? Because I mean, like when I was a kid, I used to cut mixtapes together.
Oh, wow.
But of like VHS, but it was just trailers.
That's what I did, dude.
Yeah.
I had
friends
Did you
over,
guys
and I'm
do-
like, check out my latest mixtape of trailers, guys.
Did you guys? We always called it dirty editing, but it's what I used to do, where you would take 2 VCRs and edit that way. I
You
would
get the color line?
Yeah. What do they call it? The control or the I can't even remember.
It
what
was
they
like
called
it was a color line. It was like a line that just
and it was supposed to keep you from. Oh, it was copy guard. That was it.
Yeah.
The copy
those
guard.
two.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, but that was my childhood. I would take all these tapes, and I had like 12 tapes of just trailers. I watch them over and over and over again. But it would be everything. But I do remember the trailer that was probably most influential to me was the trailer of all movies, and I know Toby Hooper probably didn't like it. Was for Life Force, the original.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
She could destroy worlds. Is that
Yes.
like one line? She could destroy worlds. And it was like, oh my God, this movie's going to be epic. And the music's playing really hard. Yeah.
Well, there was like a teaser, though, that ran before Rambo First Blood Part 2, where you're like floating through space. And it's on the Scream Factory Blu-ray. You couldn't find it on the internet for a while. And it's like, from the depths of space comes the ultimate terror. And then the eye blinks. And then it just went into this crazy montage. And you see, like, just progressively crazier and crazier imagery, and London burning down and blue lights shooting all over the place. Like, holy crap, I got to see this movie.
All right, guys, I'm going to go watch Life Force. I'll see you later.
Sold. Well, we're going to talk about trailers a little bit later in terms of our favorites and some of the coolest teasers and stuff, because that's a big that I've written a bunch of articles about that too, and it's one of my favorite things, especially ones that use footage that isn't in the movie.
Yes.
That's like my thing. The teasers. But before that, so tell us a little bit, Chela, about how the home video market has evolved in the last couple of years, kind of leading up to the Vestron line, because DVD has changed so drastically over the last couple of years, but now Blu-ray is such a collector's market, and as proven by companies like Scream Factory and Twilight Time and do limited edition stuff, it's fans will buy cool stuff if you give it to us. We want it. And I know the Lionsgate library has been much coveted, and so we're happy that you guys are doing it now. But how did that happen? How did we get to that?
We are very happy. Shayla, how many times was I bothering you in your office over the years saying, "Hey, Shayla, how about this title? How about this one? How about this one?"
And every time I tried to pitch it, then I got laughed at and turned down, and they were like, "There are not enough Chelas in this country to buy as many as we need them to buy." So this line was actually pitched in like 2007.
That was
or
Dustin's
so.
thing. Dustin and
No, it was we were when we were talking to Felsher and and I was like, all right, so I put together a pitch deck and tossed it out there, and the answer was no.
Wow.
And since then we have lost rights to some of the original ones we pitched, but so basically, cut to now, where it's so much more difficult to have catalogs sell through. The market's just so different. People are watching everything on streaming. Everyone's watching things on Netflix. It's really hard to sell packaged media these days. People don't want to pay for that anymore. And if it's so, it really, a lot of it is like an economic, how can we make the economics of this whole thing work? Because we've always wanted to put out, both Garo and I have wanted to put out a lot of these films that really haven't had a good release. And it's just a matter of like timing and when we can pitch it to our executives and have them give us the green light. And it took until now where it's like, okay, instead of just putting it out, we have to make it into something, price it a little bit higher, and make it into something special for people. Give it like the special treatment.
Collector's edition.
Yeah, and count and really just go to that really targeted market of just the collectors and not try to, it's not going to get into Walmart. No, it's not, they're not going to carry something at that price point.
I think Shopping Mall could get into Walmart, really.
Well, let's go back a little bit because I'm always fascinated by what the economics are different for every company. So for example, you mentioned pitching this several years ago and you had Felsher on board. You guys did manage to put out the Monster Squad on DVD because I remember Michael Felsher did a bunch of new features for it, and that was a big one that I remember people rallying for, we want Monster Squad, we want Monster Squad. So I mean, how at that period, did that one on DVD sell?
That one did great. I was like hero for that. And I was just looking for my next Monster Squad, and I tried a couple things. They didn't really work. And, that was kind of disappointing.
Sundown was one.
Sundown. I really wanted Sundown, the Vampire in Retreat. I'm like, yes, it's Bruce Campbell. This is going to work. I'm going to be a hero again. And it just didn't really work.
That was like, what period was that? It was like 2007, 2008?
That would be probably maybe 2009 or 2010.
Yeah, it could even be 10.
Yeah. I think 2010
because we did put it out on Blu-ray too.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, it was out on Blu-ray for a little while.
Sundown.
Sundown?
No, not Sundown. I'm sorry, Monster Squad.
Oh, yeah.
I'm talking about. Yeah.
Well, we lost those rights.
Yeah.
Because it's not like a Lionsgate film. So, Lionsgate does a lot of licensing other libraries. We had some Paramount stuff. We have Studio Canal stuff. We have some Miramax stuff. And so it just depends on that. So, doing a good job with that was, I don't know if that was part of the nail in the coffin or what, but when the rights came up, then they didn't renew it. And I'm sure they're, having fun with their own receipts on that.
There were some other good ones I do remember at that same time because we also had Cujo at the time and we had Alligator came out.
Oh, yeah.
I
those
love
were
Alligator.
some part of that same pitch deck.
Was it the Ninth Gate? So those all were really, they were nice new. That was like when Blu-ray was new.
Yeah.
I do remember that.
Yeah, we were trying to put stuff on Blu-ray at that time, and some of them I got through, and some of them I didn't.
Are some of those still available with you guys? Things like the Ninth Gate and
Alligator we lost. I think we
Ninth Gate
lost
still is there, and
Ninth Gate is an artisan pictures movie. So
and I know Monster Squad and Cujo. While we don't have the rights to those are out there.
Oh, Olive. I think Olive Films,
but they don't have any of the cool extra features that we have.
Yeah, that's the rub.
You can take our movie, but you can't take our features, man.
Yeah, I know exactly.
But what are expectations in terms of numbers of things that you can sell? Because obviously your bosses kind of were like, well, I don't know if it's worth it economically to put something out. We learned, Scream Factory, for example, will license something for, I don't know what it is, 7 years or something like that. Whereas Twilight Time specifically only does, I think they pay up front for 1,000. So I'm like we will pay whatever it will cost to print up 1,000, and they do it, which is interesting because that's a very
licensed
niche
for a certain quantity.
Yes,
I thought it was like 3,000, right?
Oh yeah, I think it's somewhere 1 to 3.
I think some titles were different. Yeah,
it was different depending because I think some of them also were part of a package deal.
Right.
But I think the thing I'm trying to get across is, Lionsgate is a company that puts out the Hunger Games movies and Divergent and things that are used to moving millions of units.
Yep.
So
that's why I'm sticking my neck out for this and putting my butt on the line.
That's what I'm trying to put in perspective is when people say no to you, like in terms of Return of the Living Dead 3, it's because they're like, well, are you going to sell as many as Hunger Games?
Yeah, so, it's not that expectation. And obviously for these, it's a lot lower of an expectation, but there's still a certain threshold. It still costs a certain amount of money for us to put something out no matter how many we sell. We have to manufacture a certain number just in order to make our P&L work out. So, Yeah, there is a certain number that we, would like to hit, but we certainly don't have to do Hunger Games quantities. Yeah.
So what about the first couple out of the gate? Because these were things that fans have been requesting all along. So is it a no-brainer when this finally went through, the Vestron thing, like, all right, chopping ball, got to do that one in Blood Diner?
Well, yeah, I mean, we listen to what people want. I mean, that's a large part of how this came out, because it wasn't just me and Garo who were sitting here like saying to our executives, hey, what about this? And what about that? What about that? Finally it got to the point where they were having to start to listen to this, and, they were thinking, okay, well, maybe this model of these, higher cost special editions could work for us.
Yeah, they were looking at like things like Twilight Time and Scream Factory and all that.
So they're like, okay, well, let's give it a shot.
And Vestron was like the kind of go-to. It was like
throwback.
I mean,
It was the shit in the 80s.
Yeah. I mean,
it was awesome.
I was going to say Vestron was defunct in like '92, I think.
Yeah.
That's when they went kaput. But to kind of resurrect and dust off that name, I mean, you guys have these titles, but to put them under a banner and bring Vestron back, to me, is tantamount to MGM dusting off Orion. You know?
Right.
You nailed it. That's exactly the game plan. I mean, because it's a label now.
Yeah.
And the titles don't necessarily all have to be films that were old Vestron pictures.
Right.
There's
Now
a
we can
lot
put
in
other
the old
things out
Trimark
under it as well.
library.
Yeah.
Lots in the old Trimark library.
Interesting.
That
So
are,
you guys
that are
are
good.
so it doesn't necessarily need to be a Vestron movie.
No,
to
Return
be-
of the Living Dead 3 is not a Vestron film. That's an old Trimark film.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chud,
guys
but-
slipped
Now I got to
that
pull
in.
up a list of
But,
the old
but
fell for
the
that.
others, the others, Chud and Chopping Mall and Waxwork 1 and 2 and Blood Diner, those were all Vestron. We started with those,
Right.
and we created like a mission statement, to try to explain to people, because we knew we wanted to have. There are so many more films, not just in the Vestron, but like I said, in the old Trimark
Exactly,
library.
yeah.
Because that's kind of where I came from.
I'm pulling up the Trimark list right now.
No, that's
Yeah,
interesting,
like-
because I mean, like, I forgot Return of the Living Dead came in '93, I think, or
Yeah,
'94.
yeah,
It was like after
93.
Vestron, so that makes a lot of sense.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you guys are legitimately bringing your label back and putting a bunch of stuff behind
It's
it.
in the
You know,
spirit
it's in the
of
spirit,
of,
exactly.
of Vestron and what it was.
Interesting.
But
Oh, now
we-
I have a whole bunch more movies to ask about.
yeah.
And did you guys already own just the being able to even use Vestron as a logo and as an idea?
Well, we still own titles under that, under that label. So yeah, we still had that name. We hadn't used that name in forever.
I think
but
we own the name, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, there was some sort of legal stuff we had to go through with our attorneys to make sure that we were cool with it, and we probably have to prove somehow in the future that that we're using it and it's ours, and because there are like T-shirts out there that say
from the-
Vestron and stuff like that. So
People at Horror Trivia wearing those. I
Yeah.
recall. Andrew Cash, I believe, is wearing one.
so it really is just like a label, not like an official part, like not an official part of Lionsgate. So it's not like Vestron, a Lionsgate company. It's like it's just our label. It's for marketing purposes, so people kind of understand the spirit in which we want these to be received.
Well, I will say it's nice to see the new logo come up.
Yes.
Yeah, the new logo is really solid.
Yeah.
Who did that? Do you know?
I don't know who did
That
the
came-
actual design. I remember
yeah.
Dustin showed it to us.
Yeah.
Like, when he was like, "Look at this," and like, "Holy crap, that was
think-
great!"
yeah.
It's super cool.
It came through Felsher, I think, too.
Yeah.
with the
Oh,
Felsher.
okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't exactly know whose hands-on work it was.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice.
And Garo, what about cutting the trailers to these? Because obviously, I don't know. The thing that this Vestron line does, which I think Scream Factory does very well, is it taps into this kind of nostalgic thing for when we fell in love with these movies. You know what I mean? We see that Vestron logo, we remember renting that title. So when you tackle, because I know you're excited right now.
It
just
was.
thinking about
Well, yeah. I mean, that was part of the fun of that trailer. I mean, if you've seen the trailer, the whole thing begins with a trip through the video store.
Right.
And that was
Brilliant. Yeah.
very specifically
Love it.
designed on that. Actually, our original plan was to like market this as like one trailer for the 5 titles. And then I remember I was at your desk and Chela was showing me like all these other titles that we had coming up. And I'm like, ooh, why don't we just make a trailer for each one? I mean, and we were able to make that work. I mean, on the budget we just had to come up with a look specific for the graphics. And I had a fantastic graphics guy, Perry Horovis, who just designed this thing, which was amazing. And it's just a certain look throughout the whole thing. So now all the trailers have a sort of unified feel. Yeah. They have a certain open and close where you see the Blu-ray sitting there in a old video store. And but we have deals with music libraries and stuff, and it all works out great.
Did you go back to the originals, watching the original trailers, not the films, but the actual trailers?
Yeah, some of them. Some of them I just kind of went in fresh because these are older masters. The masters are updated; they're all new. Although we don't tend to get the splits and stuff for this audio on these like we do with a modern trailer. So I have to be more selective about which lines I can use because you're going through the film and just trying to find the clean lines of dialogue to use. Like Return of the Living Dead 3, I kind of designed a whole new trailer for that. But I think I did use some of the, I think Love Never Dies was in the original trailer. Yeah. So I kind of, I'll
keep the spirit in.
Yeah, I definitely watch the original trailers and, base these things on those.
Well, so far, I mean, the first two were Chopping Mall and Blood Diner, and they look fantastic. Yeah. So did these HD masters already exist, or like in the vaults, or were there new restorations done?
They're new.
Yeah, how did these?
They're new.
Yeah.
Well, they look great, and Michael Felsher from Red Shirt Pictures does the features, and he always does a great job. So there's really good stuff on there.
Chopping Mall, he didn't do. Chopping Mall was the filmmakers. Mm-hmm. So that's the only one. Yeah.
The writer, right?
Steve Mitchell,
who was in here with Larry Cohen doing the Larry Cohen film.
Oh, is he?
Wait, that was him?
The tall guy, right? Big guy.
Yep.
He's the producer of the Larry Cohen documentary.
Oh,
but he's the writer of Chopping Mall.
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know that.
I had no idea. He was sitting over in the corner the whole time.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's crazy.
I'll tell you, as a fan, just watching these Blu-rays, it's a complete revelation. I mean, films like Waxwork, those were only available before on this sort of crappy full frame 133 DVD before, and now you got the movie full widescreen and looking all nice and clean, uncut.
That was my favorite part.
Yeah, I mean it looks amazing, and you guys will be blown away by Return of the Living Dead 3.
Yeah, that one I can't wait for either.
I couldn't believe how
honestly,
good that movie
I don't
looked.
think I've seen that movie since it came out on VHS, back in the day.
It looks amazing.
So long.
But
I was
always
like,
loved it.
holy crap, this looks so good.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who has Necronomicon? Who has that title? Where would that be?
Was that the Yuzna one?
Yeah, Yuzna. I'm just thinking because the
Book of the
Yuzna
Dead
connection,
one?
because that's a fun one.
I think that might be one of those weird last Empire
Just
picture
fell through the
things
cracks.
or something. Yeah, that would be a good one to put out.
Yeah,
It's never even been on DVD.
I'd love to see that.
No, I've got some weird foreign burn of it, and it's a lot of fun.
I'm in here, alive.
But now that I have looked over Trimark's selection, when's Warlock coming?
We have that on our short list.
Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, there are. That's like saying there's so many that are, that seem to be so pivotal from that time. I feel like staples, of that time. That just a lot of it is a matter of timing. A lot of it is a matter of what elements are available and how quickly we'd be able to get a revised master and a cleaned up master.
Yeah, and it seems, I think there's some of these films, there are masters in existence because they were showing like an HD on like Amazon Prime or something. I know there were a couple of them.
Amazon Prime has been showing a lot of the stuff in like surprisingly good form. So you keep, every time I see that, I expect, a Blu-ray must be about to drop. But maybe they're not ever coming sometimes.
Well, a lot of times, like, these masters are created for that type of service, the streaming service, and we're not always made aware of it. So it's like that's when we have to go and start checking and see what elements are available. Oh, this already exists? Okay, great. That's one step ahead,
Right.
Mm-hmm. For the smaller films, because now the economy of scale that you're talking about means there's certain movies, the smaller ones, that wouldn't even make sense on a finite. Like the film I would be most excited, as I always talk about, is The Kindred. But like no one knows about The Kindred, so it's almost like the reason why.
I feel like I've had other requests for that.
People like it, but I mean, it's not.
In other
words,
do the numbers. You're not the only weirdo.
You're not.
No, but it's not Return of the Living Dead 3 numbers, right? So, but it's part of the fun part of releasing cool films is showing something people haven't seen. So one thing that I thought Scream Factory hasn't always worked for them, but it's a great idea, is putting two different movies, not like Waxwork 1 and 2, but like Bad Dreams and what was Bad Dreams?
Visiting Hours.
Visiting Hours is a great double feature.
Great.
Both awesome films, but they individually probably wouldn't sell anything, right?
Yeah.
High Spirits and Vampire's Kiss was a lot of fun too.
And Dungeon Master and what was the other one?
Dungeon Master 2.
No, not Dungeon Master 2.
I haven't seen that double.
There's another one. Dungeon Master. I went blank. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Somebody will phone a
But
friend.
they've done some really fun double bills.
But just the idea of maybe like there might be a way to like different. I like the Unholy, and that would make a fun one because Unholy, no one would watch that otherwise. But
yeah, I mean, possibly down the line since we're just starting.
Yeah.
There are so many that we want to put out that we're hoping are like big home
Sellers,
runs,
yeah.
And since. Like I said, my ass is kind of on the line
Yeah.
for some of these.
So
like
buy 'em.
I want to have like some good ones come out that can put us solid on the map, and then if we have a couple that we want to experiment with and maybe making. The other thing is that just kind of from a brand standpoint, the only thing that would worry me about putting together two films that aren't sequels would be making it look like a cheap bin item.
Yeah, like a dumb
because
film.
we've done that with Walmart. We've been there,
six
done
movies
that.
on one DVD.
8 horror movies on one,
We're not Mill Creek. You know.
Right.
I was
So
going to say,
Oh, yeah.
it's like you get 3 Hellraisers and 1 Phantoms. All in one. 4 films.
man, that puts the bomb in Phantom.
And it's like the ones out of order too. It's like
No, you get Hellraisers.
Right.
But I think
Yeah.
the difference is if they look great and the films are just interesting enough, I think you can get around it. But I totally get
and the other thing is
concern.
like then it becomes like an artwork issue. Okay, how are you going to display the artwork?
Yeah.
Because to me, it doesn't look great
It
when
doesn't
you
look the
have to
same.
split the art, and especially if you want to use original art. It just looks cheap and like binny to me.
Have you guys considered going down the kind of path of hiring different artists to do other work, or do you?
Oh boy.
the custom
or
art.
is that a sore spot because it's competitive field? Or
it's more.
No, it's a sore spot for other reasons.
'Cause it costs
but
money.
the answer is yes, and the answer is I can't say anything else about it right now.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Not that you'd ever need alternate art for Chopping Mall,
No,
which is
no,
the
no.
greatest
Yeah,
design.
that is the
I'm
greatest
talking
cover
about
ever.
Yeah, no, I'm talking
love
about like
Chopping
that's why we
design.
wanted to use all the original art because back then, here's the funny thing: back then you can do things you can't do now. So for Chopping Mall, we couldn't get the artwork through the MPAA because everything has to go through the MPAA if it's rated, right? We couldn't get the artwork through the MPAA, so we had to alter it because you couldn't show limbs. You can't have someone in a bag that seems to be chopped up and dead. Like, so we had to move the artwork down so you can't see the bottom of the bag. So it's possible that there's somebody down there with a bag over their head and their eyes
God, you're
sticking
right.
out.
So it's
I
suddenly
don't
less
know what's
violent.
happening under there.
Right.
So there's
So wait.
actually a specific thing saying you can't have
So
limbs?
the MPAA would not allow that current VHS box cover back
Correct.
onto the market.
Yes.
Correct.
Can't have
Even
that.
though
Oh, wow.
we put
I
Chopping
didn't know
Mall
that.
out on DVD in 2004,
Yes.
and we used that original artwork, obviously, and I feel like someone pulled records that might have my name on them somewhere, but apparently it didn't go through the MPAA, and so that's why it was out. But they don't care. So now it's kind of like we just got to lay low.
Oh, that's
a little bit.
interesting.
That's
Weird.
crazy.
Oh my.
I don't
wow.
understand
We're
how.
looking at the
How
original artwork right now.
One
See, it's all better. It's less
slight-
frightening now.
We will do
Yeah.
a shot-by-shot
I
comparison
mean, she
later.
could. I mean, in this
Yeah.
artwork, she could just be like underneath the bag, hanging
Yeah.
out,
Exactly.
and, like, poking her head
Just
through the hole.
relaxing.
I don't understand how it's like this versus this. It's such a subtle thing, but apparently, oh my gosh, this is fine. The other one's corrupting
Yeah.
the youth of America. It may
Yes.
as well just be Satan.
No, not only that. I mean, like it's an '86 film. Like
Yeah.
artwork is that old.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like, come on.
Plus, what video store is it in to be seen? I mean, people are buying this directly from a website for their home. It's
You
pretty
know, a
absurd.
kid looking through something like chopping block for mommy on Amazon.
Yeah.
Right.
A child might come across this.
This is a perfect time to tell you guys that on my way here, I checked our Facebook messages that no one ever checks.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
there's one from Jackie Kong to Becca saying she'd love to come on and do
Yes.
the show.
Boom.
Becca,
So I literally
do we
forgot to
need to
tell
hire
her
an
that.
intern to look at messages?
I think we do.
Apparently.
And I love The
Well-
Being. Her first film, The Being, is wild as well.
Oh,
it's
yeah?
a fun movie.
No,
Yeah.
Jackie and I,
Landau.
we've done
Yeah,
a bunch
Martin
of they always put
I
us
love
up
The
on
Being.
those.
Yeah, The Being's really good.
They always put Jackie and I on those women in horror panels together, which I
yeah.
absolutely hate doing, but I'm like, I'll do it to talk about why we shouldn't have women in horror panels. And so it's kind of counterproductive, but good still. But yeah, they always put Jackie and I up on those. And she's fascinating to listen to.
Yeah.
So many great from the trenches, like stories about directing in the 80s and everything.
Remember your hashtag, Elric? What was it? Kong is king.
Kong is king.
And I will respond back to that message or have my intern do it.
Blood Diner was really like underseen though, like I think besides back in the day. But they're the ones when the movies like Chopping Mall is one I would always expect eventually to get to see because it's such a fun movie. But things like Blood Diner I feel like is hitting that kindred spot where it's like, yeah, people have heard of it, but and have seen the cover. But a lot of people haven't actually seen the movie, and it's a really funny movie. It's more of a comedy horror, more comedy than horror, but it's in that perfect 80s vibe, and it's a pretty wacky movie. Is that the one where at the start the guy's driving the car right into the mountain, the cop's driving right at the start and drives right into the mountain? Or there's something in the humor of it where like straight off the bat you're like, what the hell?
Well,
am I watching?
they have a talking brain.
Yes.
Bubbling water, and he's insulting them all the time.
Yeah, I haven't seen the new version, but
their uncle
I'm
or
excited to
something.
see it.
Yeah. Uncle Anwar.
Uncle Anwar.
Yeah, and it's kind of like a loose blood feast remake.
It's supposed to be, I
It
think,
was
more fun.
actually, it
Sequel or
was supposed
remake?
to be a sequel to Blood Feast.
I see.
because the
originally.
Shitar is still, it's the same kind of, I'll call it mythology from the original, where it was like an Egyptian god that they were doing the blood sacrifice for.
Why didn't it? Was it just purely a rights thing at the time? Like he just wouldn't give her the
for
official
Blood
right?
Feast?
Yeah, to make it a part
I can't
two.
see Herschel Gordon Lewis being like, no, this is sacred to
unless
my
he's not
heart.
paid. Yeah, I mean he's a money guy, so
Yeah.
Well, Elric,
Yeah, and some of the
there's
special features
on there.
they go over that. I was going to say they answer
perfect
that.
tie-in.
Are you guys who's running the Facebook page, the Vestron Facebook page?
That was actually started by a
Fan?
Yeah,
So
these
that
are
is okay.
unofficial.
I'm trying to confirm or deny like who's running it, if that's an official.
Well, we were like, great, run it. We love you. Great, please put this up. Okay, sure, put this up. Okay, sure. Like, who am I going to turn down help on this?
Right,
No
yeah.
way, man.
No, they're very thorough. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm very surprised by how in depth they go. Always putting links and trailers.
I'm gonna have to like this thing. I didn't even know about it.
Okay, guys, can we throw some titles at you?
Hold on, let's cut this
Okay.
shit. Go straight into Slaughter.
Okay, Lair of the White Worm.
That's a good one.
It's a good one to do.
I freaking love that one.
Yeah.
Needs to happen, guys.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's very trippy for those of you guys who haven't seen Lair of the White Worm. Really crazy film, but has Hugh Grant in
yes.
it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Raul Julia or William Hurt? Neither of them? That's because
Neither
the
of them.
Spider-Woman.
No.
Yeah.
No,
But
Lair
it's
of the
directed
White
by Ken
Worm.
Russell.
Yeah,
this
Ken Russell.
one.
The
So
Ken
it's
Russell one.
real
Yeah.
trippy dream sequences
yeah.
with
A lot of
nuns and snakes.
post-altered
Anti-religious nuns kind of penis imagery. It's really
All right,
bizarre.
I got one for you.
Yeah.
Paramedics.
Oh, I don't know that one.
It's a comedy.
either.
It's a comedy. It's a
Oh, come on.
It's
Send the police.
No, I've seen this. It's the one with the fat
police.
yeah, the
Yeah,
Fat
the
Boys
Fat
movie.
Boys are in it. It's hilarious.
Hold the phone. The Fat Boys are in it. Let's
the
get on
poster with
that.
the ambulance and they're all like hanging out the side.
You mean Disorderly?
Oh my God! It was their after movie.
Okay, I am confusing it with Disorder.
Because Disorderlies is amazing.
Oh, you led me astray.
And I would love that movie on Blu-ray.
All right,
Thank you.
let's go to a real
No.
title because I sat next to Garo at Slaughter High only a couple weeks ago. We were
Yes,
sitting right
yes.
next to each other at about what time? 4 in the morning, I believe.
4
that
in the
one came
morning.
on.
I was drifting in and out of
man.
consciousness.
And I was
during
going to
that, yes.
leave. I was done with. I always leave about 4 o'clock so I can get home and sleep. And when it was Slaughter High, which is pretty much like my first slasher as a kid, I sat right back down and went, "Oh yeah!"
Yeah.
And I loved every second of it. I love that film. I think
It's
it's
the
a lot of
movie
fun.
with like 35-year-old high school students.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah, I mean, that's another one on our short list as well. The only thing that kind of bums me out is some of these films we tried to release a couple years ago and they just didn't do so hot.
That DVD
And-
released
Oh, the
in
DVD?
2.0?
It didn't, well...
That was like an
no.
80s label we tried,
So,
right?
yeah, so here's the thing. In an effort to try to get some of these through, then we had branding at the time that was
yeah.
kind of like this
The cartoon hipster that
Oh,
was
hipster...
they-
on the
yeah.
box.
But I feel like it was before there were really
That wasn't you.
hipsters.
Was it your...
It was under my...
Yeah.
It was under
I-
my umbrella.
I
It
only
wasn't
joke.
mine.
I only joke because I was recently on a trip and I bought it on DVD because I
Yeah.
had never seen
Oh, sorry,
Slaughter High.
yeah.
And then I saw that and I was like, oh yeah, they were trying this like weird branding.
But that was
Right,
the only
because it was
slasher.
It was the only. It was basically. It was supposed to be the same type of nostalgia thing, but not just genre titles. It was titles from the. I was at the time. There was someone working with me who really liked these 80s movies, and she, so when at the same time I was trying to pitch the Vestron stuff back then, it got turned down. Then there was this other idea, okay, why don't we have these movies? And some of those movies were a little bit more mainstream because they weren't just genre titles, and we could brand them like this. And they were like, sure, you can give that a shot. So we gave that a shot, but it looked like this. There was a little hipster dude on each one of these covers, and they each said something different, and they had something different written on their
They had like little, no, I can pull up because
I never saw that.
Well,
I just remember the
Slaughter-
classic skeleton guy with the graduate hat and the apple.
Well, no,
Sort
Slaughter
of
High was
generic artwork.
That's the Slaughter High edition I have.
I think
I want the jester.
if the film came out under that sort of presentation where it evokes what you remember
Marty,
about
or
these
something with
things.
Marty with the
Right.
with the jester.
It might have a different
This whole
reaction.
line, it was called the Lost Collection
Yes.
but Slaughter High was the only horror one because it was Morgan Stewart's Coming Home, which is one of my
is great.
favorite, and it actually says on the cover, John Cryer, the original hipster. It's right there on the cover.
Didn't we also?
Oh, so it's almost like
And-
VH1
Do we have
pop-ups?
private
Yeah,
resort?
it's
that was
private
right.
resort.
What we don't
Yeah.
know is
No,
Chela,
was it
Chela
Private-
modeled
no,
as that hipster.
Private
They just
resort
drove
had
over her.
Johnny Depp in it.
Repossessed was one of them.
Oh my god!
Yep.
I forgot there was like 6 of them, and they
Yes.
were all under the banner of the Lost Collection. But I could see, since the other ones are primarily comedies, I could see Slaughter High getting. You know what it was when I saw it come out? I confused it with Student Bodies.
Student Bodies
Which is
is
kind of
like
that weird
it's a
comedy
farce.
version.
It's wonderful.
I always got those mixed up initially on DVD, but totally different things.
You know
But-
what? If
but
you were
you
going to
should see
do
Student Bodies.
if you were going to do a double bill, Repossessed and Slaughter High, that's not too bad.
Yeah, it is.
You know, if you were just going to put it, out.
I think you're cheapening Slaughter High's value.
Yeah.
Aim higher, my
Hey, I
friend.
like
Aim higher.
Repossessed.
Sleep-
Yeah.
No, I
you
definitely
guys-
no. So I think it's the Slaughter High would be a really.
I think
good
it's like
addition.
Chopping Mall,
I'm
yeah.
not- I'm not telling you.
Also,
get
they're
Carolyn Monroe to do an interview.
Yeah.
I will also say Vestron has it's a kind of a hidden gem, I'll call it. You guys have Fear. Which is this
Ali Sheedy?
Yeah. I love this movie.
remember that.
I've written about it on the site, and everybody's like, I've never even seen this. So it's this movie from 1990 starring Ali Sheedy, and it gets confused with Fear,
Mark
like the
Wahlberg.
Marky Mark movie. Yeah, Elric hitting his chest. right
Everyone
now.
always knows.
Everyone confuses it with that
She has
one. But it's,
she's telekinetic.
Ali
or something?
Sheedy plays a psychic who starts getting flashes, not even like psychic flashes. Like she usually is just like, I can sense things about people, but she somehow psychically connects with a serial killer. So she actually can see him killing people. But he knows, like he can feel her watching him. So he makes sure to never reveal his identity, but she starts getting flashes. Like she'll catch a glimpse of him in a mirror or things like that. And so she's trying to help the police, but the police think she's full of shit. But the slasher or the killer can see her as well. So he can see through her eyes. So he starts picking up glimpses of who she is as well.
Right.
And starts
What?
targeting her.
Yeah.
It's really good.
I'm sorry. Can you take that back to one and re-explain that?
There's a lot of like, I can see you. No, you can see me. No, oh, there you are in the mirror. It's a lot of
wasn't
that.
that like that? I think that was made for like Showtime or
I think
something.
it was too.
Yeah.
I wrote an article about it a couple of years ago I stumbled on it and was like, this is actually pretty good.
But Vestron did it on VHS. Was that like a
Yeah,
It's a
actually-
Vestron title.
Yeah, I'm looking at
Okay.
Vestron
All
pictures
right,
online
okay.
right now. Are you primarily thinking of just sticking to the horror titles? Because I see now there's things like Dream a Little Dream
Blue
and,
Steel.
and
Little
Blue
Monsters.
Steel.
Blue Steel's good, man.
Is that a potential for some point down the line if the horror line does well?
Yeah, well, that's something we've actually already discussed in terms of what can be part of our Vestron line. And really, we wanted it to be genre titles. That's not to say that we don't want to release other films in this fashion. Because we're having this initiative for these titles, it's helped our executives kind of think a little bit better about like, okay, what else can we do and give it this type of treatment? So there are kind of different levels or different tiers of how we would treat a film, whether it would, putting it on Blu-ray and give it like the special treatment and have a higher price, or would it be, something that's a little bit lower priced as long as we have a good master source element that we could use, and that would be, something you'd more likely see in like Walmart or something like that.
Can you just renumber those on the spine, those that are not horror titles? Because I really don't want Dirty Dancing kind of disrupting the number system. You
Yeah, I
guys
do
are
like
putting
the
on
number
spines.
system.
Man, you know how
It's
many
like, where's
times
number
I've
10?
released Dirty Dancing since I've been at Lionsgate?
But what about Havana Nights?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, how about this? Instead of throwing titles at you, are there any that are off the mark? Like things that were Vestron but are no longer rights available to.
Space Truckers.
Space Truckers is not going to happen.
Whoa.
I tried to negotiate to get that back, or have our person negotiate to get that back, and it just wasn't going to happen. I was super bummed.
Bummer.
I haven't thought about that title in forever.
Yeah. Square
I
pigs.
just remember Black Eyes.
Steven Dorff.
I kind of want to see that one now.
Yeah, now I'm like, okay.
That's some good. That's
Space
some good
Truckers,
makeup
huh?
effects and stuff.
There is.
Yeah.
No. That's pretty good.
I'm glad that you fought for Space Truckers.
I do.
Actually
I do.
took some time out of your life to fight for Space Truckers.
Yes, I did.
You're the people, right?
good.
She really did. That's legit. But are there any? What about also any dream titles that you guys were really just personally would have loved, even if it's not on the cards directly? Just something that you
Mine
had a
was
passion?
Return Living Dead 3, so we already got that.
got
And
it,
that's
yeah.
kind of the glory of like being the one to come up with the schedule, is that you can put the ones you like
Yeah.
on.
At the top of the list.
The
Yeah.
Gates. The Gates.
Oh, yeah, where's the
That would be
Gate?
that would be an awesome title.
Is
The
that
Gate
still
was a
with you
big.
guys?
The Gate was another big title for you guys too.
Yes.
wasn't it?
DVD.
And that was in
Yes.
theaters, and
Yes.
it was very well
The
remembered.
Gate, yeah, that's a lot of people's
I
childhood.
just remember that being an event DVD when that
Yeah.
came out.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was applause on from our sales team as well.
The Gate 2, I had a Canadian DVD of. But
Yep.
it's the
I
Gate
got that too.
Yeah. See, that's why I love Garo. He owns the Gate 2 as well. Let's see. What about well, I'm not going to throw up titles, but anything that's come out previously on because I have a lot of the Lionsgate 6-packs and stuff like that have things like Chud 2 and Earth Girls Are Easy and these kind of titles. Are all those still in-house as potential?
They all are. Those are all thought about. Yeah, yeah.
All right.
There's a lot of secrets in this room.
Yeah.
there are.
There's a lot of winking and
Well, fine. Let's go to
gesticulating.
Yeah, let's go to our
freaking
trailers here,
then, man.
guys.
All
right.
I got a good list.
All right, start with Congo. Break it down to me.
Congo's the
Why is
first-
Congo such a great trailer to
It's
such
your
a
favorite-
shitty movie?
Are you talking about the teaser trailer where you're just going through the
oh my
jungle
god,
and
it's
everything?
out of focus. And
Yeah.
I wanted to see that movie so hard, and then it's just a bad movie.
It's a really bad
just
movie.
not
Yeah.
fun.
Can we talk about Eraser? The trailer for Eraser.
yeah.
was
Eraser
dope.
Oh yeah, that's a good
Schwarzenegger
trailer.
one? Really? Wow.
Oh, no, I'm kidding.
All right, get
No,
outta
but
here.
the trailer, I remember the one that I think the trailer that made me reflect on trailers the most was, well, there were two. It was one was Life Force, the other one was Runaway Train.
Oh, Runaway Train.
The trailer for Runaway Train is intense. And then I just remember Bram Stoker's Dracula with the blood. The blood kind of seeping together. Oh.
That's like Shining us, yeah.
My biggest fear of my childhood was 2 trailers, and I later saw the movies and was like, but I didn't see the movies until much later because the trailers had terrified me. It's Alive, where it was just the baby carriage
Well,
rotating.
then they're like
TV
teasers.
spots.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
like the
teasers,
teaser
yeah.
spot.
There's
and
one
then the
thing
other
wrong
one,
with their baby.
Exactly.
It's alive.
And then it rotates around and then it
I love
rack
it.
focuses into the claw and that was it. And I was just like, oh my God, this is horrifying. And then Magic. I remember
Yes.
seeing the trailer before a movie I was watching. I remember seeing the trailer for Magic, and it didn't even matter what the movie was. The trailer for Magic fucked me up so bad.
It was just the ventriloquist
Yeah.
dummy.
Talking,
and he's saying,
yeah.
hocus pocus, we take her to bed. Magic is fun. We're dead. Oh, shit.
oh my God, you
Yeah.
are so next level with that. Holy shit.
He should just be here for weird references and
I know.
voiceover.
We need somebody to chime in with exact dialogue.
Do you know,
We'll go to Garo.
Garrett, do you know exactly when? I know we had the director of Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 on our old show,
yeah.
and he was a trailer cutter too. And I remember asking him the same thing, but I don't really know if you can pinpoint when trailers. When was the period when they really started showing you too much in the end, and when it became all about like maybe overselling rather than the teaser version of
Oh,
trailers?
they've been doing that for years.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at some old, I've been getting some of these Olive movies or, the
yeah,
Blu-rays
yeah.
of some old science fiction movies.
And they just show
Yeah, they
literally
give everything away.
everything. There was
Yeah.
one called, what was it, the Invisible Monster, or what was it, the Magnetic Monster? There is nothing left in the
But
movie.
that's because there's nothing to show. In
There-
there.
there
They have
isn't
to show you
anything.
everything.
Yeah.
But I mean, like big blockbusters, like big Hollywood films where you're seeing the ending, like right there in the trailer.
Yeah.
Like, do you have a philosophy on that
But
yourself?
I think they've always been doing that.
Yeah.
They've
Yeah,
always.
there's a lot of movies I
It's
remember
just a
being
matter
more
of
like teasers.
if you can make it look like that's not the ending. So if people don't
Yeah.
know it's the ending, it's not until they've already paid to get in there to see the
Exactly.
film
Just
that they are
Chela.
like, oh,
Shayla,
that's the ending.
That's the secret
Yes.
to doing it
Yeah.
right. You know, you mix it all. You got to mix up these imageries
Right.
in a way where you're not.
Well, you don't end with it in the trailer. You don't
Yeah,
end with the
you
ending
try
like
not to.
Wreck. or
Well, yeah, Rec is kind
You're
of
talking about quarantine, but you don't know that until you see the movie, and unless you're a goober that's like going, "Oh, they showed the last scene in the trailer," then you're ruining it for all your friends.
Well, the thing is, even Die Hard did that. The first Die Hard
Drives me
showed the
nuts.
building blowing
Oh
up.
yeah, and him jumping off the money shot.
The building.
Right,
It's in there.
I know.
But how
the
come
final
how
scene
come
of
it didn't
Deep
bother
Rising
me
is
back
on the
then?
poster.
Why does it bother me now?
The Deep Rising is a callback to episode A.
That is 3 times we have mentioned Deep Rising tonight.
Oh my god!
That one had a good trailer. Full Scream Ahead.
Full
Yeah.
screen
The
ahead.
copy.
Great.
I mean, can you guys just like get that one from TriStar?
It needs some love.
I have a blue
Ryan
of
and
it,
I
I
will do
think.
the commentary.
There's a Blu-ray. There's a Blu-ray.
It's a double feature, right?
A special feature.
Guys,
You
we
want
need
a,
to
you
do
want
it
a
again.
collector's
Special,
edition?
you want a collector's edition with a lenticular cover.
Oh,
You get
all
Ryan
right.
and I to do the commentary. It's going to be fucking epic.
You know what we should just do, Becca, as a side? We're talking sidebar conversation here. We should just record an episode of Shockwaves. It's just
Just
us
the
doing
two of
our-
us during Deep Rising.
Elric and I are okay with this.
Elric,
Go
Rob, you
ahead.
good with this?
It's got nice taiko drums. The soundtrack is amazing for Deep
Tree
Rising.
Williams is there.
Elric's
I
in
might
for
want
the
to be there.
kindred. You know?
Yeah, I'm there for the kindred.
Well, for me, I remember when I was a teenager and all the horror sequels were at their kind of peak in the 80s. What I loved was the teasers before the movies were even done, because they would kind of. I have a couple that I brought up that I wrote about, but the most famous, I lost my mind when Leatherface Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3.
The Excalibur thing.
They were doing this thing where they were hiding that it was the horror movie. And then
Yeah.
it become like this guy is just at the lake and it's got this beautiful music,
Yeah, that's awesome.
and it's like some legends can never be, or reborn or whatever. And then you see the freaking chainsaw come out of the river, ta-da, get flown. Leatherface
like
catches
Excalibur.
it. Yeah, it's Excalibur. Struck by lightning, and then it's Leatherface.
And Jason Goes to Manhattan.
Jason Goes to Manhattan is
That
another
was so much
great
better
one.
than the movie. I mean,
That's the
ones
the promise of that trailer.
Yes.
And the ones you're talking about too, Rob, Ed, like you and I were at the same shows.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
at the
same
weekend as
conventions.
Fangoria Weekend of Horrors. What we always looked forward to as kids was Mike Gingold and Tony Tapone doing the trailer show,
reel, yeah.
because they would come up and be like, "Welcome Fango, welcome Fango attendees." So the studio just brought us something new. It's never been seen before.
Yeah.
We'd be like, "Oh my god,
Good old days.
and then it was they would show these trailers that were fresh off the the assembly line from the studio, and I just remember the excitement and the energy, the crackle that would be happening. So I remember seeing the Leatherface trailer in that crowd, and it was just amazing.
Well, the funniest thing about the Leatherface trailer is I'd interviewed Jeff Burr, who directed it technically. There was a lot of issues in post-production, but he said he got hired for it, and I think that weekend he went to go see Nightmare on Elm Street 5, and the Leatherface teaser played before, and he's like, I just got hired to direct that movie that has a date on it. And I had nothing to do with that teaser that just showed.
But even like at AFM, which I did not go to this year, but like for 10 years prior, every year that I was with Fango, I always went to the American Film Market. And you would literally just walk room to room and see teasers for these movies that had never been made yet. Like I remember seeing the Nurse 3D stuff long before they ever shot the movie.
Yeah.
And there was one from like 4 years ago. I saw a teaser for a movie called Squirrels. And it was a horror movie about killer squirrels. And the teaser was fucking unbelievable. It was amazing. And I don't think the movie ever got made.
It never got made.
But the teaser was
we
brilliant.
knew people up for that one, right? Rob?
I know
we knew
about
different people who were up
I
for
knew
that.
for the
about
scroll one,
5
yeah,
people
yeah,
who were
yeah.
attached to direct that, and then it never happened. So.
Wow.
Well, I know one of my favorites is Suspiria, which
Yeah.
is I think it's just that creepy
Skull thing.
Yeah.
skull. It's like the girl kind of turns around and it turns out she's just a skull. And I think they use the tagline, the only thing more terrifying than the
the
first
last
80 some
10
odd
minutes.
minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a really good one.
That was
I
kind of a
always
line they
liked,
use a lot.
I liked the Frankenhooker trailer a lot.
Oh, that's a
It's
great
one of my
one.
favorites too.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
freaking.
Where it begins in black and white, like it's the old one. And
Yes.
then from the makers of Basket Case and, brain damaged is Frankenhooker.
And it's got like this great 80s
Wanna date?
Yeah, it had
great
good
song
music.
to it. Frankenhooker's a great one.
But
Wow.
I was always because I follow those exploitation films of the 70s. That's definitely always been like one of my passions within horror, but it was always the trailers that pulled me in, like Avenging Disco Godfather. The trailer for that was just I know, giggle, but it's one of these things that like I fucking love that trailer. Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. I remember seeing a ridiculously young age, way too young to see Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, just because I thought the trailer was so wonderful.
Well, pre-internet, that was the way to find out about movies. You sent me the VHS, and I got so. And my favorite thing in the world was when it said more previews coming after the feature.
Yeah, and I would keep watching.
Yeah,
I watch a feature, it goes through the credits, and I get to watch more trailers. You know,
You know, it's funny. Like I used to, like Ryan, I would collect these trailers over time from like different movies, and it would usually be big blockbuster movies like Star Trek 2 or whatever it is. But then I remember a buddy of mine introduced me, and he passed away. Great guy, Dave Krause. He brought me this tape. He's like, "You got to see this." It was called Mad Ron's Trailers from Hell.
Oh, yeah.
And all it was 70s exploitation, horror movies like, I drink your blood and I eat your
is that
skin,
where Trailers from Hell actually took their tagline?
They might have. I don't know.
I mean, Joe Dante's
Because it was actually a thing. It was hosted by a guy
Yeah,
who's
probably
like
is.
ventriloquist dummy, and they would like talk, and then they'd show all these stupid trailers, and it was amazing. And I just fell in love with these crazy trailers for 3 on a meat hook.
Yeah,
it's like the
that's
42nd
how-
Street collections.
I
I
used
love
to
those.
see all those trailers. Like
Yeah.
I always loved, and it's how I got really into Doris Wishman, because her trailers were so weird, where they would just be like a woman walking was all you would see, but then there would be like a 2-minute monologue of a guy. You'll see sex without shame. You'll see love without. It was just like she's just
And they
walking.
they usually end with the line like a film that had to wait till the permissive 1970s to be released.
Yeah.
Like that,
The story of sex your parents never told you, and it was just they were always such a sleazy monologue.
And then they'd have the interviews with the people coming out of the theater, like the old woman.
I
like,
just remember
they
Mama.
showed everything. Oh my God!
Gara, is that I just remember Mama, where they do the fake news report right outside the cinema, and they act like it was the most violent
Yeah.
film ever.
Yeah. There's one
That's
guy
a
who's
good
going
one.
crazy.
Yeah, the guy's going. That's a good one.
That's a good trailer.
Yeah, that's a really
I,
strong one.
I recommend strongly because they do make a lot of these DVDs. They're called 42nd Street Forever, and
They're
there's like
wonderful.
4 or 5 volumes
Good
of
for
it.
parties and just
But
have it in the
it's
background.
just
Throw 'em on.
hours of trailers for all these kind of weirdo horror movies.
And almost in
stuff.
all those cases, you don't really want to watch those whole movies.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
The
it's like
trailer's
just
enough.
everything. It's everything you want.
Yeah,
know?
especially with they do a lot of the video nasties movies. Some of them are great. Some of them, the trailer's enough.
Well,
It really
there's
is.
a 2-disc set for Video Nasties Volume 1 and Volume 2 that have documentaries, but they're also, second disc is just loaded with trailers. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And that's not the case with Vestron films, because you just feel like you want to buy those and own them in your house.
Yeah,
And keep her job going. That's the feeling you'll have.
Blood Diner, Waxworks,
Especially at
they're
Christmas.
films. Chopping Mall.
I got a question for Garo really quick. In terms of, because you've cut trailers, you know the history of trailers, but what is the one piece of soundtrack music that's been so overused in trailers? Because I remember
I can tell you.
post Bram Stoker's Dracula, it was dun 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 dun, and it was like, oh, you're using that in Lord of Illusions. Got it. Okay, next trailer.
The Aliens theme is the big one. I remember.
Oh,
really?
see, I would always
That
say the single plunk of a keyboard that sounds like it's a kid.
Right.
But okay, but let's hear what it is.
Well, there's a couple, because here's what happens though, because you just mentioned the music from Aliens or
Yes,
whatever.
yeah.
It's like it
That
sometimes
became
is
one.
the music of Aliens, but sometimes it's something that sounds like the music from Aliens.
Right.
Like I remember I did a trailer for a movie called Rottweiler. And that one, if you watch the trailer, you think you're hearing the music from Aliens.
Yeah.
You're not. It's a film, like a library cue that sounded like it, you know? But there was one track I remember got used so much. I think Chris used it 2 or 3 times over the years we were there, but we've been there a long time.
Yeah.
It was called Red Room or something. And it was like, oh God, I don't know if I can imitate it. It's just like, dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. I mean, you'd know this thing if you heard it.
I know exactly which one you mean.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a choir. It's in the Alien versus Predator trailer. And you've heard it a
Everybody tune
million
in.
times. You
Yeah.
know?
For a little while, they were using after Dark Knight. All of a sudden, it became the Dark Knight theme is in every action sequence. V for Vendetta used it and all that kind of stuff.
And you can tell, you'll go back and look at certain movie trailers, and they always have music from a movie from about maybe 4 years before it or something. So if you're looking at a film, that came out after Kroll, you'll hear the Kroll soundtrack a lot, or Stargate soundtrack was used a lot in some things. I remember,
I really liked your trailer for the movie The Frontier, which
Oh,
is playing
yes.
at the Egyptian Cinema November 19th,
Oh wait,
which is
That
a
was
week
a
from
very-
now.
A
Still
week
tickets
from now,
available.
thank you.
excellent film.
But actually, it was fun because I actually, threw that your way. And what I really liked about your trailers is it made me, I just finished the commentary and watched it and interviewed my friend Oren who directed it, and it made me want to watch it again. And to me,
the
that's the
trailer
ultimate.
was
It was more
awesome.
exciting.
That's
It's
my
a
goal.
condensed version. And it
Every
was-
time. I mean, I try and infuse it with the excitement and energy just that I love about movies, and
Yeah.
that whatever the film is, if for some reason the film doesn't quite measure up to maybe what the promise of it is, I'm going to make sure the trailer has the promise of it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So at least you will deliver. On
Yes.
I promise to
be a
make it as
kick-ass
exciting
trailer.
and awesome as possible. You know?
Alrighty, well, we're almost out of time. We got to wrap up now, but thank you so much, both Chela and Garo, for coming down. The first few titles of the Vestron line are out there. My favorite so far is Waxworks. I love the movie. I love that we finally have it in
So
widescreen
good.
and
It looks so
uncut.
good.
Yeah.
And it looks
Yeah.
great. The special features are great. Very candid. Anthony Hickox has no problem.
It's amazing. Some
Talking
stories
about
you
how
hear.
he
Yeah.
dated both chicks in the movie.
Right. The special features just, I was glued to those things, man.
Yeah.
That just, what a great job Michael Felcher did.
Yeah,
I
for
kind
sure.
of
Amazing
can't
work.
wait to watch Chud 2
Chud-
now.
Chud 2.
Yeah.
I really need to revisit it.
I think it'll fit the bill for you. It's
Okay.
that kind of
And I'm really-
era.
It's my era. I need to rewatch this.
Yeah,
Chud
Return of
2.
the Living Dead 3 is the one I'm really excited about now too. So hopefully they will continue to thrive. So pick them up.
Let's do it.
And let's get some more
Yeah.
titles going.
Yes.
But thank you guys very much. Really appreciate it. And
Thanks
we
for
will see
having
you
us.
soon.
Thank you very much.
Great.